There is nothing better than the sultry jams of the countdown for This Is the NWA. This is how we do it.
While Rob eats bowl peanuts.
Nobody gets into it like Dr. Stinson.
He knows how to throw down.
Way on the right side of that. That's bad. That's freaking. I was over here like.
That's what I was doing. I was just like, throw the bows.
That's the only move I got, man, is this. That's it. I'm up in the corner. That's all I'm doing. I'm just in the corner like this.
We saw y'all in the chat room. Y'all were out there having a blast, like having a good time. We were like, man, do we even interrupt this conversation? Because it seems like everybody in YouTube's just like getting it all in the chat. So why bother? But here we are. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to This is the NWA. It's the podcast celebrating the past, present, future, history, legacy, and tradition of one of the greatest pro wrestling entities of all time, the National Wrestling Alliance. And yes, after all of this time, I did almost completely forget the intro to this show. So I don't know how that happened. But luckily, if I forget things, I'm not alone because I am here with my lovers, Will Martin and
Rob. Putting that out like that?
We're the Golden Lovers.
Yeah, I don't think that's a burden I can carry.
Pop said the weasel because the weasel said pop.
Yeah. Okay. I don't even know what that means, but I'm with it. Yeah. How are you beautiful people doing? That's what I missed at the beginning. What's up, you beautiful people? Hey, it's good to see you. Oh, shout out to everybody in the chat room. Thanks for joining us. And this is the NWA Live. I don't know what we call this show really. The Sunday Night Wrestling Talk. Wrestling.
That sounds good.
Wrestling Talk.
Ryan Romano's getting uncomfortable in the chat, but that is too bad because it's only going to get worse from here. Hope you're ready. Stay tuned. Rob's going to make it weird before this is over.
He's already weird.
Oh, God. I just knocked
How do my BPMs look, man? My BPMs look jacked up.
We're already getting some heat from Brian Rosa. You guys should run an indie promotion. You got the starting late down perfectly. We know how to do it. PFW, Prize Fight Wrestling. That's us. All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about today. There's plenty to talk about. But you know what? Why don't we start with, since Brian Rosa's already on us, how about we just go ahead and start with the biggest news of the week, that we got a lot of updates on Mission Pro Wrestling. The Tournament Out of Hell, fellas, is happening on November the 6th. It's on the Title Match Network. It's also going to be in Buda, Texas. Dr. Stinson is going to be there as well. Our boy Front Row's in the chat, so we'll lump him in with us and say that the Nation Show, actually the Nation Show's in the chat as well. They, along with us, are sponsoring the Tournament Out of Hell. And we are proud sponsors. My God, are we proud. We are just happy to be a part of this. And we did what we could. And because we enjoyed that last show so much, we could not risk the possibility of it not going on again. Guys, do you feel good? You feel good about the Tournament Out of Hell?
Yeah, I'm stoked for it, man. And I'm stoked that we're actually an official sponsor. I feel like we were kind of an unofficial sponsor for Hell Hath No Fury. Now we get to be an official sponsor, and it's cool, man. It's a really cool thing, and I can't wait for the show. It's a day before my birthday, so that'll be a nice little birthday celebration for me to be able to enjoy that show. So yeah, I'm stoked for it. Rob, I know you are.
Oh my gosh, man! I got my House Rose shirt ready. I ordered it, man. I got the nice soft cotton one, man. It's red. It's beautiful. And my girl Rachel Rose. I'm gonna throw the prediction out right now. Rachel Rose will be the first Mission Pro champion. You heard it here.
I figured, Rob. You'd already have like a replica belt. You don't have the belt yet.
It's over there. You want me to get it? It's over there.
I got it ordered. You're gonna have to talk to Brian Rosa and see if you can get one sent to you. That's a good idea. Maybe they'll make little toy replicas like my 10 pounds over here that we can get. So already announced for that show right now. I don't know everybody who's in this contest, and we've only seen the poster, so we can't speak too early about who's going to be doing what at the show necessarily. But we do know that Thunder Rosa is going to be there. She is the NWA Women's World Champion. We'll be happy to see her back. We've also seen on the poster Genocide will be back. I'm excited to see her. What about Ray Lynn? I've heard rumors and rumblings about her, but I don't know a ton about her, so that's going to be fun. The sinister-looking, insidious one is going to be there. Of course, Rob's lady, Rachel Rose, is going to be there. Lady. Also, just a lot of people you remember from last time. We got Vert Vixen. We got La Rosa Negra is going to be there. Excited to see her again. Maddie Rinkowski, of course, is going to be back, as is Red Velvet. And some new people that, I'm sorry, and I almost forgot Alex Gracia. She'll also be there. But some people that weren't there last time, it's Rochelle Riveter. I'm not familiar with her. Excited to see what she does, as well as Vanity. And then Heidi Howitzer and Aligato. And WOAD. Not familiar with her either, but she looks like fun too. So I'm excited to see what that's all about. And Lacey Ryan is also listed on this poster. So that's what you've got so far on the Tournament Out of Hell. I see some shout outs for Lacey Ryan in the chat already. So that's exciting. I don't know some of these people. I'm excited to get to know them. But word of the street is, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but word of the street is not all of those women are in the actual tournament for the Mission Pro Wrestling Championship. So the MPW World Champion might not be Thunder Rosa. She might be busy doing other things. And so it's going to be interesting to see who's actually in the tournament, what that entails, and who comes out on top. So maybe it could be Rachel Rose, so she doesn't have to go up against Thunder Rosa at any point. But my pick, if I could go out on a limb, and we'll make Will do it too. You guys can throw yours in the chat. I'm torn. I'm going Maddie Rinkowski or La Rosa Negra. It's one of those. That's who I'm feeling. I love Rachel Rose. Don't get me wrong. But I'm feeling it. It's either Maddie is going to surprise everybody, or the talent and experience of La Rosa Negra is just going to be too much for everybody. We saw that showing with Big Swole and Hell Hath No Fury, and I'm feeling her. I think she's got what it takes.
Those were the two that were top of mind for me, but I'm going to go Maddie Rinkowski. I think I can just see that happening and being huge, and her kind of coming out and making it happen, making it for an exciting night. So I'm going to go with Maddie.
Nice.
I already said it, and Maddie Rinkowski, don't get me wrong. I mean, I seen her in person, man. I was like this close. She is the real deal.
Too close. It was too close. Social distance.
Man, She everything, all that's built. I mean, there's such wonderful talent there in Mission Pro, but no doubt, man, bank on this. Your Mission Pro champion is going to be the Queen of House Rose. It's going to happen. And I know my boy Ryan Romano is going to be there. I think Polka Dot Pam is going to be there. And we will all three bow the knee to the Queen of House Rose after she hoists that beautiful Mission Pro Championship in Buda, Texas. And we will be there. Well,
is Tanya going to be there?
And about that, she was like, hey, Rob, hey, I got this deal on a statement from Pro Wrestling Tees. What is this shirt you ordered? I was like, oh, baby, don't worry about that. That's part of our sponsorship. I was like, yeah, don't worry about that.
I don't know. Well, I'm seeing some picks for Maddie in the chat. I'm seeing some picks for let's see, Vert Vixen here. So this is pretty interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun finding out what's going to happen. Well, we got to see how the tournament shapes up. That's the next real announcement, I would think, is is Thunder Rosa defending the NWA Women's Championship at this pay-per-view. And does that mean she's in the tournament or not? And then also, just like who's actually in the tournament. Because, I mean, one day we left out of there that's, if Genocide's in that tournament, then that's a dangerous game to be playing. Like, she looked dominating. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that La Rosa Negra, that experience is going to overtake her. What I think happens is La Rosa Negra's on one side and Maddie Rinkowski's on the other side, and they both sneak their way to the finals. and then La Rosa Negra just underestimates Maddie, and Maddie takes the win. That's my guess. I'm with Will. So we got 2 votes for Maddie, 1 vote for Rachel Rose. So it's gonna be interesting. And what are you gonna do if 2 of our people like face each other right at the beginning of the show?
First of all, I don't like how you got the text right over my face, man.
Well, sit up, Rob. You got to sit up. You got to have better posture than that.
Secondly, I don't know. Our queen, our real queen, Thunder Rosa, who's in the chat, had a beautiful Greek dinner. She drove half an hour. She talked about it last night on the Nation Show. It was an outstanding show. Go back and watch it. She bought this beautiful Greek dinner for her and her superhero of a husband, Brian Rosa. And there are pictures of her eating this meal with just the steam coming off of it. And I'm getting my people are telling me that Brian Rosa has promised that I will be getting a plate brought out to my shed at Mission Pro. So I wanted to throw that out there first. Why are you looking like that, Gary?
I just don't understand why they bother with you. Like you're just like they're not going to lose any support from us if they just leave you in the shed. So,
they're leaving me in the shed. I'll be in the shed. But if so, you're talking about if 2 of our if Rachel Rose and Maddie Rinkowski meet in the first round, is that the question?
Yeah. What happens then?
Rachel Rose advances. Duh.
Wow. But what happens if you're wrong?
I'm not wrong.
All right, I'm just saying. What's that doctorate mean if you can't make accurate predictions? That's all I'm trying to say. Brian Rose said in the chat saying you're going to get a plate of kibble and bits, so that's
nice.
More accurate. I agree with that. Well, I can't say enough about this show. This is one of my most look forward to things we got going on in the wrestling industry today. Like I can't tell you how excited I am about the next Mission Pro Wrestling show. This is by far one of my favorite promotions in the business. So I'm sure
we've already got a date for the December show too.
Oh, did we already get a date for that?
I think
Break some news on us because I have not had a chance to see this yet.
No, it's like December the 11th, I think. Thunder or Brian can tell us for sure. I think it's December the 11th, I believe. Same location there at Pinball's Kingdom in Buda, Texas. So I've got Tanya right now looking for tickets for that. So there it is, December the 11th.
Y'all should just move out there, man.
I was literally about to say the same thing. Why don't you just move to Texas?
They got schools there you can work at.
Chattanooga's, man, it's too close to everything, man.
You might have to move to Texas after last week when you dropped Cockmaster in the middle of the show.
No, man, I got some professional development at work the next day.
Rob, you can't be out here calling UWN talent Cockmaster.
Well, man, you're a role model to these kids, man. You're training the youth. You can't say Cockmaster. I was like, I promise you, I will never go on there and say Cockmaster again. I shouldn't have said Cockmaster in the first place, and I'll never say Cockmaster again.
Good.
Yeah, that's all right.
You're doing great.
Oh man, it's better. I would say it's better than being like cock intern. That's all I would say. So at least you're training them to reach for the stars. The next piece of news, I don't know what. Why did we already fall apart? This is. But yeah, anyway, December 11th. Look forward to that. And Tournament Out of Hell. We're obviously going to be talking about it every single week, multiple times a week. Up until that moment, we can't tell you again how excited we are. We hope you're all ready. We hope you have a subscription to the Title Match Network, so you're watching this junk. Let them know that Thunder Rosa sent you with Mission Pro Wrestling. That's what you got to do because this is the best wrestling you can find for that low of a price. My God, and I've got NXT on in the background over here, so whatever. Speaking of NXT, there was a media call. And there was a discussion about the possibility, again, of NXT moving off Wednesday nights. And this was asked to Triple H. He said, I'm happy where we are. There are conversations around all of our product at all times. The best place for it to sit, the best place for it to work, all of that. Funny, I don't hear anybody else asking about people moving on Wednesdays since we are always on Wednesdays. It comes down to a question of where the show best sits, not only for us, but our partners and wherever they want to go. We're open to doing the best business we can, but it's not as simple as it's our decision and we just want to put the show where we want. Those decisions are made by partners and everything else along the way. People tend to believe what they want to believe, but it's not a concern to me. We go out to put the best show on that we can put on. It really feels like he's just saying the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
This quote. Yeah, as far as where it sits, those are business questions that come down to WWE and our partners. My God, why did they quote that whole thing on what I just read? Because he just kept saying. So how does that make you feel? Does it feel like NXT is going anywhere, I guess?
I don't know. I mean, he kind of didn't really answer the question. I mean, I guess he alluded to that he didn't want to move. I don't know. I can't even tell what his point was in all of that jumble. Was he saying that they want to stay or they don't? I mean, he talked a lot about partners. I don't know, man. That was the most discombobulated response that I couldn't even wrap my head around it.
Rob, you have any thoughts about NXT and where they end up?
I haven't seen it here in the last week or so I don't want to go in here and just wing it like I know what I'm talking about. So, I have no comment on what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's not really like a huge news item or anything. It's just a thing of like both shows do decently well, and when they're not head to head against each other, then it seems like it can help both shows succeed. But I think some of the theory is that if they wouldn't even be on Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights if it wasn't for AEW existing there, that they're just there to disrupt the momentum of AEW, and so
right. It's a competition. They're trying to bury the competition, but I like NXT. I think healthy competition is not a bad thing. It makes them up their game. NXT, for my money, is the best thing WWE's got going on, and we've said this week after week, so it's no headline here, but that's my 2 cents.
I'll take your 2 cents. I appreciate that, Rob. Thank you. Brian Rosa bringing up an interesting news item, and I think it's worth bringing up. He says, enough WWE talk. Let's talk Trevor Murdoch. I'm with you.
Let's do it.
Let's talk Trevor Murdoch doing a flying body press. My God, that was impressive. I've got a picture of it saved. I just want to post on Instagram again. Just the height he got on it. I just did not believe Trevor Murdoch could do such a thing. But definitely the feel-good moment of last week, possibly of September, was seeing Trevor Murdoch defeat Aaron Stevens for the NWA National Championship. That's pretty fantastic. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but like Nick Aldis has been doing like an Ask Nick segment on his Twitter, and Rob. I mean, I'm sure Rob's been following along with it. I was going to try to pull it up here, but he mentioned some people. I saw Rob try to like throw Trevor Murdoch at him.
Well, I wanted to mention Trevor because Trevor Murdoch no longer has to seek a championship match. He's the number one contender. He's the national champion. But I threw that in there because I was really interested in Mike Bennett. I don't think that we've gotten the final line on Mike Bennett yet. I mean, there was that first match was epic. It was great, but I don't think that it's got the it got the respect it deserves because of the technical thing, because of all the technical issues going on. You know what I mean? Will you dump that for me and bring it back, please?
Sorry, Rob. We don't mean to bother you.
I asked Tanya to dump my cup of boiled peanut shells, and she got ticked off at me. I'm sorry.
Texting for that?
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, thank you. I'm in hot water.
Well, guys, if you haven't liked and subscribed, go ahead and do that. You can have more of this. We're here twice a week with this kind of content. So thank y'all.
Yeah. What I was saying was I don't think that Mike Bennett got a fair shake. I mean, there was a lot of chaos. That it wasn't given the time amount it needed. And I really feel like that still has the makings of a really epic series of matches. And so I just threw the question to him like, hey, man, we're not done with Mike Bennett yet. I mean, you've got a number of people, lobbying for a shot of the championship. Obviously, Trevor Murdoch is going to get a shot. He's the national champion. But where does Mike Bennett fit into the equation? And Nick Aldis replied that Mike Bennett will be getting another match. So that was pretty definitive, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, that's I was wondering about that too, so I'm glad you asked that. I think that they definitely left it that way at the end of their match at Primetime Live, Mike Bennett and Nick Aldis, and that show of respect. And I think we will get a part two. I mean, we did talk about how that match seemed really rushed, and we didn't really feel like we got all of it that we needed. And so I can't wait to see that one again. But yeah, I mean, I am interested to see, with Trevor Murdoch, I mean, what's he going to do? I mean, is he going to go ahead and put it out there that he's ready for a 10 pounds of gold title shot, or what's going to happen? I don't know, but it's really cool. And just to see a title change that, like we saw this past week, it was Jay Cal and I were talking about it on the hot tag on Friday that, it was just such a shot in the arm for us as NWA fans, because, it's just a reminder that, the champ's been saying it all along, Nick Aldis, that the NWA is open for business. And so seeing that title change was just like, okay, we're back in business. Things are moving along. This is a storyline that was happening pre-COVID that now we're seeing a payoff of. And so I'm stoked about the NWA and where all this is going. But yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see, and hopefully we'll get some answers to some of that stuff in the ring sooner rather than later.
And Trevor's going to get a shot. I mean, he has earned it. It's not like he's got to work up to it. He is now in the position of the number one contender with that beautiful national championship. But there's no debate about that. It's going to happen, and he's ready. To get to earn the national championship, it means you're ready to be a world champion. So he's in that echelon now. He's an A-lister. You know what I'm saying? But with Aldis and Bennett, there's just something was off about that night. And if you want to look at what it should have been like, you look at Thunder Rosa and Priscilla Kelly. That match was a showstopper. It was a locker room. This is one of those matches where everybody comes out and watches because it was so good. It was such a good match. And we all want to see Thunder Rosa and Lindsay Snow Part 2. We all want to see Thunder Rosa D Part 2. We want to see Thunder Rosa Priscilla Kelly Part 2. We got to see it. I mean, we have to see it. But we want to see Mike Bennett and Nick Aldis Part 2 as well. And I'm just waiting for Power to get back to where, or for UWN, the second series of 4 matches or four bundle shows for us to be able to get that opportunity, because I really think that has the chance to be one of the epic rivalries in wrestling. This may be the one that all this is waiting on. You know what I'm saying?
You're talking with Trevor and Nick.
I'm talking with Mike Bennett and Nick. Oh,
with Mike Bennett and Nick. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, because I'm with you that Trevor and Nick could be good, but yeah, you're right. I mean, Nick did tease back that there was that 2 out of 3 falls comment that he made to you, so I could definitely see that happening. Brian Rosa asking if they teased a women's match for UWN tonight, and yeah, I think they did. And I was trying to look up while we're at it, I guess we could look this thing up. This is for the 6th. I'll have to get on this. It's I don't know. They did announce a women's match. I saw it literally on their Twitter earlier, and I can't remember what the heck it was right off the head here. Let's all be really quiet.
Zicky Dice is going to be in action.
Yeah. Zicky Dice is going to be teaming up with a mystery partner as he takes on Watts and Pope This will be a sanctioned by the NWA match, of course, TV champion Zicky Dice, who was also on the Patreon call. Rob, you were a part of that. He was, if you're a Cardiland Patreon member, you got a chance to sit down and discuss with Zicky Dice a few things. He actually talked even about the negotiations that went on with all the discussion about him not being a part of the NWA and that sort of thing. So it was kind of interesting. But one of the reasons that the Patreon can be worth it. Any guesses, you guys, on who Zicky Dice could possibly be considering for his mystery partner, or who they have lined up, or chat room? You guys, who are you feeling for the mystery opponent here that Pope and Watts are going to have to take on? We should also mention, by the way, Watts is on AEW Dark coming up here pretty soon, so that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll mention, and we were talking about this before, is in the Discord we were having some conversation around this, and somebody brought up that Zicky's been doing a few things with Enzo, formerly Enzo Amore, on his Twitch stream and stuff like that, and that could be a pretty big shock factor. And it would, if that's the case, it would kind of make sense that that's why they're not announcing it, because I could see how it could possibly be spun in a negative light beforehand, and maybe they want it to be a surprise. I don't know. So I could see that. I mean, it's a little bit of a long shot, but it could totally happen and totally work. And I mean, honestly, outside of that, I mean, I don't have a big hunch about anyone else. If we're looking at the NWA, nobody really jumps out to me as somebody who would be in that spot. I don't know. Rob, what do you think?
Well, the popular pick right now, and the one that I've seen a lot of, is obviously Enzo, for good reason, and I think that would be fantastic. But being on that Patreon call, and I don't know if Polka Dot Pam's in the chat or not tonight, but she was in there with me, and he made a comment just as an aside. And I don't know if he used the word question or if he said something about questions arising over this, but he said it in such a way that made me think, could it be the question mark? Could question mark be the mystery partner? And I don't know. He said something about that. So I have to go back and watch the call when Maureen puts it out. But he seemed to say something about people have questions or alluding to a question or something. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Is he teasing question mark maybe? So I'd say Enzo's probably the bet, the safe bet, but man, maybe question mark. We saw Aaron Stevens last week.
Well, I'm seeing John Stallman in the chat throw out the idea of Ricky Starks, since AEW is clearly okay with some folks showing up on UWN Primetime Live based on the silhouette. He's guessing Ricky Starks, so that would be interesting to see Ricky show up for sure. My guess, I do still Wrestling with the MMA, who's in our chat as well, says that Enzo, he keeps up with Zicky's live streams a lot, and says Enzo's definitely on his stream this Wednesday, and said that it would make a lot of sense for that to be the case. So yeah, and of course, question mark, it's possible. It's interesting to wonder where he's been this whole time, why he wasn't with Aaron Stevens, by the way, who was still repping Monrovia. Usually you're used to seeing a question mark right behind him, but I don't know. That would be interesting if for some reason he shows up with Zicky and not with Aaron Stevens.
Well, question mark has been in quarantine himself, over in Monrovia, and right now there are very limited flights from Monrovia to the States, so it's not like he wasn't here to support him. You putting it out like he bailed on him.
I love that you take anything related to Monrovia very personally, and I respect that about you. Well, the Goblin also mentioning in the chat, it's worth talking about, is that could it be Eddie Kingston? He's got a feud with the Pope that carried on. So yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Good
that's
point.
another. It would be really cool if they could pick that back up. So. We should also mention right now a newsworthy item that's happened. If you are currently, or just later on when you're listening to this, if you saw NXT TakeOver, Ember Moon just made her return. There was talk about her never appearing again, that her career might be finished. And she just made her debut at the end of the women's championship match. So welcome back, Ember Moon. Did you guys happen to find, I don't know if you saw anywhere on the UWN Twitter or something. I know I just saw them announce a women's match, so it's just driving me crazy. So I was just curious if you guys saw it. I'll look right now as we're talking, and it won't make for dead air. I was wrong.
Oh, did you want us to talk? I'm so sorry.
Lacey Ryan is taking on Vipress. Lacey Ryan is taking on Vipress, and she's defending the FSW Women's Championship. This is FSW Vegas. It's the official wrestling company of Las Vegas in the Southwest. Future Stars of Wrestling is what that is for. That makes sense after, I believe it was just this past week, United Wrestling Network announced a official partnership with Future Stars of Wrestling. So it looks like their first match based on that is Lacey Ryan versus Vipress. So Vipress hanging out with, we saw her in a bunch of pictures we follow on social media with like May Valentine and Allison Kay. So she was out partying with them. I apologize in the chat to Woodland Goblin for missing him, apparently saying it the million times that he typed it into the chat. First of all, million is way too many times to type something, copy and paste it. And I apologize that I didn't see it. So, all right. Next up on the list, Mike Bennett was on a podcast recently. Since we were talking about him, I guess that just makes it easy to move right into it. And Will showed me on Wrestling Inc. Daily where he was on there, and just basically the cool stuff out of it was just talking a lot more about how Triple H was more in touch with things than Vince was. And so, I think saying essentially some of the same stuff we've all thought about previously, that one of his quotes here is he's saying he's actually seen the stuff that guys have done in Ring of Honor and Impact, New Japan, Noah, or wherever. So he knows what guys are capable of. And again, I don't know because I didn't work under him that long to really get a grasp. But besides, there's no one else besides him because they all just report to Vince. So everybody just does what Vince wants to see. And that's the core issue. No one's writing television or booking TV because they think they just trust that it's going to be good. They book to save their job. Many of WWE's creative woes are blamed often on the writing staff. But he says that the writers get a bad rap all the time, basically just talking about that they just do it based on what Vince is into. The exact quote he gives here is, so if Vince is in that week, like really into poop humor, they're going to be like, well, let's just book a lot of poop humor jokes because we know that'll get on television and we have job security. And that's how it works. And there you go. That's his exact quote for it. So I think we've all had kind of an idea of that's how things go there. But just an interesting thing from Mike Bennett there on Wrestling Geeks Daily Podcast. Any thoughts there, fellas?
Can you hear him?
Nope.
Sorry. There you go. All right. So I'm sure
I was looking at something else and I was like, God dang, I'm left out to dry here.
I'm sure it looked like I was saying something really interesting. I wasn't. I was just saying that I think it's a good reminder that, if you're a writer for WWE, you've got some level of talent. We like to, and I've been part of that too, giving those guys a hard time and, this storyline, that storyline. But it is a good reminder. I mean, these guys, they and girls have gotten to where they are, and they are writing essentially, like Mike Bennett said, to please the boss, and that can sometimes be a detriment. And so I think we unfairly do kind of point the finger at the writers when ultimately it's a top down thing. And we should probably have a little more respect for those guys. They could probably write great wrestling storylines if they didn't have that the Vince factor hanging over them like that.
Yeah, I've got a friend here, Lex Lee, who actually just worked. Well, heck, I don't even want to say this, man. You'll see it here in another week or so when Talking Shop comes out and all that. But He had a little stint on WWE as Gary Graham. You look it up on YouTube and all that. But he was like, when we went out there, he was like, these writers had everything scripted down to like when we wiped the sweat from our brow. I mean, it's to that level of minutia. And I know the workers, they're very stifled by that. But Will is absolutely right. It takes talent to be able to do that, to please this scrutinizing eye of Vince McMahon and Triple H and the upper echelon of the leadership there at WWE. So, you have to respect them for what they do, because it cannot be an easy job. I mean, I haven't been stressed out at work since I left the Army. I leave work relaxed every day. Those jokers, man, have to like their hands are like this every day. I mean, they're just living on edge because they have to please the boss.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us can relate to that too, because we've been in positions where, maybe we knew that something could be done better, but because there was like a standard that was set above our head, we were kind of, stranglehold a little bit and couldn't really do things to our full potential. And so it's got to be frustrating. So, that was kind of refreshing. It was kind of a down-to-earth take from a guy that obviously us and the hashtag NWA fam have a lot of respect for as of late, in Mike Bennett. So I thought that was cool that he kind of went to bat for them.
Yeah, very interesting stuff from Mike Bennett. There was another update. Let's see here. It was on Chris Jericho's Saturday Night Special podcast. One little brief bit of news I wanted to mention was he talked about Wrestle Kingdom 12 in January 2018, and just saying that was the exact moment that Tony Khan, the president and CEO of AEW, felt confident in starting a new wrestling promotion after seeing the kind of global interest that Jericho and Omega generated, and the business that New Japan actually pulled off. So just, I don't know. I guess I just wanted to bring that up. Because Jericho seems really proud of a lot of people. I guess where I'm going with this is a lot of times if you listen to Cornette's podcast a lot too, he thinks that Jericho's just cashing a check, or it sounds that way, as that's what he's trying to say. But I do think that Jericho is very proud of AEW, that he
For sure
is taking a lot of credit for that, and feels like he wants it to succeed and to build stars out of it, because he feels responsible for helping that get there. And so he was kind of discussing something along those lines with how Jericho Omega helped Tony Khan be convinced to start the promotion, and just interesting to hear Jericho talk about that. So for those who see him like wrestle Orange Cassidy or something and think he's just like, whatever, I'll just make some money, I don't think he's that way. I think he legitimately is trying to put over Orange Cassidy. Like I think he wants AEW to be the top brand.
He does, and even like I don't know if James Lawrence is James still in the chat. I thought I saw him earlier. Like James Lawrence even has come such a long way just in a matter of a few weeks about this brand, and like what the revolution they're trying to accomplish in pro wrestling. And whatever you feel about it, we can have like tactical differences, but Chris Jericho has every reason to be proud of this, of changing the landscape along with the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes. There's only a handful of people that can pull that off, like personalities. You can take any person with money and throw it at it, and that's not going to mean it's going to work. You have to have personalities, and there are only two other people that I think could do that, and that would be like Thunder Rosa and Nick Aldis. I think they're the only other two people besides Jericho and the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes that could, just on the strength of their personality and their ring persona and their international respect and goodwill, could pull off something like that, a revolution. And I hope that Nick and Thunder Rosa realize that they're in control. They're so good that they're on the verge of being bigger than the business. You know what I mean? Like a Chris Jericho or a Young Bucks are, and all that. And so Chris Jericho has every reason to be proud. You can disagree with the tactics. You can disagree with a few matches here and there, how they do that, but don't be proud of what you've done, man. You've created something that is beating the mothership, WWE, who we all respect WWE. Whether we like what's going on or not, we all acknowledge that WWE is the one that's going to raise the standard and bar, and how they go, the rest of the world of pro wrestling goes. I mean, Will's been saying that since we started this. That's why we were so vocal about the things that we don't like with them. But, what they did in AEW, man, gosh, take a bow, Jericho. Take a bow, Cody. Take a bow, Young Bucks. And I want Nick Aldis and Thunder Rosa to look at that and observe and say, and realize that, hey, they have the strength of personality to be those kinds of guys that they are dictating the terms of wrestling, not someone else. They're that good. They're that respected. They're that credible. I'm with them, man. I'm with them forever.
Yeah, I think it was cool in that talk that, and I had never really drawn the association in my head between that Wrestle Kingdom match with him and Kenny and that whole feud being kind of a catalyst for AEW. It totally makes sense. But I think, his point was, Jericho made waves in the wrestling world when that happened. If you remember when that happened, and this was before obviously AEW was a thing or anything like that, and Jericho had left WWE. I don't know if it was highly publicized or anything like that, and then I remember when that video showed after Kenny Omega's match in Japan, and I mean, dude, that was like the biggest thing that had ever happened in wrestling. Like it felt like at that point, because I was like, holy crap, this is Chris Jericho, WWE, legend, and he's in New Japan. And it was like the first time that we saw somebody of that caliber from WWE show up somewhere besides the WWE. And that really, I think a light bulb did go off with, as he's saying, Tony Khan and the powers that be for AEW saying, we could do this. Like we could have a rival promotion with this kind of appeal. And so, yeah, and I absolutely right. I think he should be proud of what he's done. I think he even said in that talk that, what he's been able to do with AEW is like the crowning achievement of his career so far. And this is a guy that's done a lot of things, this is a guy that's been a lot of places and accomplished a lot of things in professional wrestling. So, I think that's cool. I think it's genuine. I don't think he takes credit for AEW's success in the sense that he knows it's not a one-man show, but I think he's self-aware enough to know that his presence brought a level of credibility to AEW when they launched that may not have been there without his presence. And I think that's completely valid. I think him being there and him being that AEW World Champion was extremely beneficial to the credibility that they have now with us as the wrestling community.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Jericho's, I've seen the criticisms of him doing silly stuff, but I mean, that's kind of always been his thing. I mean, he bounces back and forth, and it's the strength of his character, I think, that he's able to do that. He always takes it right to the line. And even when he appears outside of the main event picture, if you're watching AEW right now, it appears he's like working his way right back in again. So it's kind of interesting to see what he's doing. I guess there's a lot of places to go there, but what we should mention is, speaking of AEW, this week they've announced that Chris Jericho and Jake Hager are going to be taking on Luther and Serpentico in that tag tournament they're doing. And Brian Cage is defending the FTW championship against Will Hobbs. Will Hobbs, I like that guy. And also, the first ever dog collar match is taking place as Brody Lee is defending the TNT championship against Cody. That looks like it's going to be kind of wicked. I don't know the last time I've seen a dog collar match. Do you guys remember a dog collar match recently?
I don't. I seriously. I mean, I think did Daniel Bryan have one? Daniel Bryan and somebody had one, or was that just a strap match or something like that?
I think he had a strap match, but yeah, like an actual dog collar match. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, dog collar match, man.
Valentine, man. Piper and Greg Valentine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Greg,
I was going to say, man. I mean, that's
Piper lost an ear in that match.
Jeez.
Well, that's going to be exciting, and AEW's already proven that they'll go all out on these things, and they're not afraid to have some blood and stuff like that thrown in there, so it'll be kind of interesting. I'm seeing in the chat Raven and Abyss had a dog collar match, so
7 levels,
and then of course, the 7 levels of hate mentioned by Roscoe. Yeah, so some good dog collar matches in history, but it'll be interesting to see them bring that back this Wednesday. I'm kind of excited to see what they come up with. All right. And on the same note, since we were talking about Jericho, I also wanted to bring up that another big piece of news that kind of dropped. I was reading more about it in the Observer because I wasn't really familiar with everything going on here. And admittedly, I'm trying to learn a lot about New Japan. But it's Harold George Mage. Is that how you pronounce his last name? I think that's it. He was the president and CEO of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He'd been getting rave reports of how he handled like COVID-19 and had taken New Japan to record revenues and profits and that sort of thing. But suddenly, just here recently, he was, I think it was on September 29th to be exact, Bushiroad dropped him as the CEO of New Japan. He's going to remain in the position until October 23rd when Takami Obari will take over. He was head of New Japan in America, their American division, so he'll be taking over the whole company. But for some reference, Harold was the senior vice president of Coca-Cola in Japan starting in like 2006. In 2014, he left for a company called Tomy, which he built into a $2 billion per year business in the Japanese market, making it the number one toy company in Japan. And he became the president and CEO there in 2015, and that made him one of the first foreigners to ever lead a Japanese company of that size. He left that company and appeared to have retired until he was hired by New Japan in May of 2018. And so he's been there for like 2 years, 5 months, and he became a pretty controversial figure during that time. Not like for anything like really wicked, just that he was there was a lot of bitterness from some talent, especially the American talent, as time went on, just that they didn't feel like they were treated fairly, that they had given their loyalty to New Japan, and he didn't seem to have that same loyalty back to them. That goes into play with the AEW thing, because like around 2018, I was reading a little bit about this, that, you know, there was a lot of talk about the formation of AEW and wrestlers leaving, like the Young Bucks. Cody Rhodes was going to be in there, and Adam Page, and of course Kenny Omega. And they expected that, yeah, sure, maybe all these guys will, but Omega probably won't, because he loves Japan and he lives here, and he's not going to do anything, and who cares? And he was kind of treated as though he downplayed that whole situation, because Kenny Omega was the top American star they had over there at the time. And anyway, so he got a lot of criticism there, and he was supposed to be going to the Madison Square Garden show to fight Okada, and ended up, I think, getting pulled from that matchup, and that caused a lot of backlash because New Japan decided to stay loyal to ROH and didn't want to go with this rival company. So Tony Khan's been asked about this recently because of this guy departing, since it seemed like he had these kind of butted heads maybe a little bit with these guys. Tony's reaction was pretty much, I'm not sure yet what this means. He says his initial gut feeling is that it could be good. So this could open up new stuff with AEW and New Japan. So that's kind of the talk of the town right now, that could be coming back around. But this guy was also well known because he was the one who, you know, set up the Tokyo Dome shows to go for like 2 nights, which gave them a lot of revenue, which they say saved the company during the pandemic. And also he set up the Omega and Jericho match in January of 2018, where that, you know, made huge revenues as well. He also was hugely known for building the women's fan base in New Japan, even setting up like a women's only section in the New Japan areas when they were having matches, if they wanted to go there and not have to worry about being hit on by the male fans while they're watching wrestling and that sort of thing. So he had his ups and downs over in Japan, but he wasn't, you know, loved by everybody because of those kind of things. They definitely just that maybe he didn't read the waters correctly, but and that he downplayed AEW too much. So I don't know, Will, if you had any thoughts on that, but I just thought it was kind of an interesting story and worth mentioning.
Well, I mean, you know, it excites me, the possibility of AEW and New Japan partnering. I just think it makes tons of sense. I mean, there's a lot of synergy between the talent there and their connection, obviously Kenny and a number of those other guys to New Japan. And I think it would be great exposure, the same way that we've said that, Thunder Rosa being on Dynamite has been great exposure for the NWA, and it's created a lot of synergy. I mean, I think it would be good for all parties involved. I mean, I think you'd see some more U.S. subscribers to NJPW World and things like that, but just being exposed to some of that talent and some crossover would be really cool. And, there's just something, I mean, in the professional wrestling world in America, there's always a deep connection to Japan. I mean, it's always been that way. When I was a kid, it was always huge when Flair would go defend in Japan, or Vader, came from Japan. And there was always these references to Japan. And I think there's such a rich wrestling culture in Japan. And when you can tie that in to something in the U.S. as big as AEW, because obviously it's never going to happen with WWE. They're not going to partner with anybody. But if you can create some kind of partnership and synergy there, and I love their partnership with Ring of Honor. I think it was great. That's how I became more exposed to New Japan, because I had first kind of become a Ring of Honor fan, and that's where I was seeing all these guys, in the Elite for the first time, the crossover that they were doing at Wrestle Kingdom and big shows like that. And so I think bringing that back and creating that connection would be just great for wrestling as a whole. So that when I read those quotes, I just got excited about that idea because, like I said, as a wrestling fan, just Japan is just so cool. New Japan, All Japan, all that stuff like that. It's just such a big part of wrestling in the world. I love that when there's that connection between the U.S. and Japan for wrestling.
Oh yeah, man. And I don't care what you're talking about, whether it's baseball or soccer or pro wrestling. Japan is such a world-class cauldron of talent, man. And the NWA has always had roots in Japan. It's one of the flags that's on the 10 pounds of gold, because that's one of the countries that the NWA has traditionally been defended in. And, Nick Aldis has talked about his dreams of defending in Japan. Thunder Rosa is a Joshi Princess champion. I mean, Eddie Kingston is so heavily influenced by the Japanese strong style of wrestling. The world is better when Japanese talent is involved with American talent. The world is just better off that way. And you have an obligation, I think, to be an informed wrestling fan. You have an obligation to be aware of New Japan. You have to. We had the debate a while back about PWI recognizing, which championships, and we have all said that the NWA championship should be recognized as the perennial world title. But nobody's debating the fact that the New Japan championship belts are world titles. They are world titles. They're world-class champions. And to the extent that they can be involved and interact over here in the United States, the better. It's better for everybody. You have to be informed, man, about Japan.
Totally agree. That's why I even brought it up, is I want to make sure that we're covering all the relevant stuff in the wrestling industry. This is going to be a big move for New Japan and could be a precursor to some huge moves in the U.S. as well. I tried to get some of the people more knowledgeable than myself about it as far as like in the industry, their ideas on it. Of course, obviously, I'm talking about like some Melters and those kind of people. And, the discussion I saw there was that, like, yeah, it could be an opening for AEW and New Japan to partner up. But also one of the things that was promised when this gentleman was taking over was that he was going to help move New Japan into the U.S. And, obviously the pandemic had a lot to do with this, but that was one of those things that, he promised like a certain amount per year. He didn't get that. So the idea is that he didn't reach the target amount, and it couldn't happen without moving into the U.S. And so he didn't move it into the U.S. And so chances are that revenues were so low that they used this as an excuse to go ahead and get him off the books as far as the salary, so that their numbers look better. But I guess the point I'm trying to get to, though, is that they were saying that on one hand, they could work with AEW, but the idea was also for them to have their own deal in the U.S. So, and if that were to occur, then how well would a deal with AEW work? Because they're going to try to compete with AEW at the same time. So it's interesting it's going to be neat to see how this plays out, I guess. There's different factors at play here. So it may not just be as simple as, no, they're buddies.
There's definitely other factors at play. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. According to an article in Wrestling Inc. this week, and since confirmed from others in the company, Vince McMahon sent an email to talent that WWE would be taking control of all Twitch and Cameo accounts in 4 weeks. Talent was told that all accounts in those genres would be owned by the company, but Talent could earn a percentage of revenue from their accounts. What got people upset is that the revenue would count against their downside guarantees. With no house shows, essentially the old bookkeeping method of what the talent that are under contract now earn in almost all cases, except giant merchandise draws, would be less than the downside. Taking away the house show, the house shows were a large percentage of those getting sales from merchandise and that sort of thing. So now they're going to use basically to round it off. They're going to use the Cameo revenue as ways to supplement their downside guarantees, essentially. Some of the talent, of course, is livid about this, and some of it are like, okay, great, well, it's going to open up that independent contractor issue all the more. And so, what are his attorneys thinking? But, nobody's really speaking publicly about it. They're all just like squeaking to the dirt sheets, supposedly. But it's interesting to see how this is going to play. This, of course, got Andrew Yang back involved with it. He was talking to Wrestling Inc. I don't know what. I feel like this is going to lead to a WrestleMania match between Andrew Yang and Vince McMahon. It feels like
Why not?
this is the way things are going to go. But he was quoted as saying, "If your company is worth $3.3 billion, and the way you treat your workers is just shameful. You could have made an argument in the past about cost, but now you can't. It's just plain effing greed at this point. If you were to ask professional wrestlers how many of you would like to be part of the Screen Actors Guild, I have a feeling you'd see every single hand go up because SAG affords tremendous protections to other actors and actresses who are on screen every day and every week. The parallels are almost 100%, where if you're a professional wrestler, you're inhabiting a character, you are given storylines and plots. In some cases, you're given actual lines, you rehearse, you perform in front of a televised audience. A lot of this is that wrestlers are afraid to speak out. I've had wrestlers past and present reach out to me and say, Vince has been getting away with the exploitation of wrestlers, calling themselves independent contractors while controlling their activities for years and years. A lot of it is just that they are a quasi-monopoly, and wrestlers fear that if they do try and unionize or organize in any way that Vince doesn't like, that they will never be able to work again." So that is that story. Rob, I see the fiery passion in your eyes.
No, I'm not taking it, man. I'm not touching this one.
Okay, well,
that's good. That's good, Rob, because I just don't have the energy to argue with you tonight. I just want to stay friends tonight, keep it friendly. Yeah. I think anyone with a conscience and a good sense of how to treat humanity knows how to feel about that story.
And let me say too that when we're talking about what people have a right to do and what people should do, those are two different discussions. Okay, we can get in here and talk about what someone has a right to do, but sometimes you exercising your right to do something makes you an asshole. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So you have a right in a free society, and I like free societies. You have a right to be an asshole as long as it doesn't, as long as you're not. Well, I'm just not going to get into it. We're talking about two different things when we're talking about what is the case is not the same as what ought to be the case. Okay, those are two different philosophical discussions, and for me to try to get on here and make that point and drag that out, because I really believe in fundamental rights. I believe in the rights of individual players, and I believe in the rights of corporate entities to exercise with very little restraint. That's going to make me sound like a jerk, but I think that individual players have their right is to act as individual players is as essential and as fundamental as the right of corporate entities to act. And I don't want to get into a philosophical discussion because it's just going to make me sound bad and heartless, and it's not what I'm trying to get at. I'm a very sympathetic person to people who lose their jobs and who are have a jerk of a boss. But having a boss who's a jerk is not a crime, okay? Just because it's not a crime doesn't mean you're not an asshole, though. So I just want to get that out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we're definitely not gonna argue about this because that's a fair point. I think for me, where I come at it is, we're a podcast of 3 wrestling fans, right? And we're at the end of the day always going to advocate for the talent because those guys are the reasons that we're fans. They're not the only reasons. I mean, we understand that there's a business side to things, and there's writers, and there's people who are funding these events and promoting it and putting it on. But at the end of the day, I mean, we fell in love with the wrestlers and their performance and their competition in the ring. And so for me, again, you're right. I mean, it's not illegal, I guess. I don't know. They're trying to figure that out, it sounds like. But whether or not it's okay to do or not doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And it doesn't mean it's not like a slap in the face to the people who are, literally busting their ass to put your company in a position to make money, and they're making a ton of money. So it's just, it's a bad look. And I think that's what I called it last time. It just doesn't look good. And from a PR standpoint, I mean, if you want to get into the business of it, you're not really making yourself look like a nice, generous and well-meaning business. You're making yourself out to be the greedy heel of the corporate wrestling world, and if that's what Vince wants, then mission accomplished. But I just feel like that's not a good look.
Yeah, I think the thing is that at the end of the day, when we're discussing something like this, we're all sitting here wanting the best for the talent that's involved. Like, we want them to get as much money as they can possibly get. They're a part of the greatest sport that we love, and all of this stuff. We care about these people. We want them to be served properly for doing what they do and putting their bodies on the line. So it's never that, I don't think. And so the discussion, and I think this gets lost sometimes, is that really it's about how do they achieve that for themselves. And so it's on one hand, we look at an entity like WWE being in this position that they're so powerful that it feels as though there's not an opportunity for these individuals to achieve what's fair for them. And so you have to ask, at what point is the point that, say, the government would step in? And that's ultimately the usual, I think, the question. And a lot of us would feel like the government should, I think some of us would feel like the government should stay out of it, and the wrestlers should be able to unionize and form their own thing and do a Screen Actors Guild kind of thing. Nobody's stopping them technically from doing that. That they fear for their jobs, some would say, is the part, where else are they going to go? What else are they going to do? Well, things are opening up now, so maybe that's becoming more of a possibility. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think either, we don't have to have the full debate about when is the right time for somebody to help them along. But it's just I think that's the ultimate decision there. It's just we all want the best for them. It's just does Andrew Yang need to step in, or do the wrestlers need to figure it out? Is basically, I think, where it lands.
Andrew Yang is a private player. I don't have a problem with him stepping in. And certainly, I mean, unionizing is very much within the context and the discussion of the history of the free market system. You can do that without, I think that's far preferable to government regulation or government intervention, because when you let the government intervene, then you're ceding the decisions about what's right and wrong to them. And they do not care. If you think they care, they definitely don't care. So, it's if you want to dance with the government, you're dancing with a very fickle partner. I would much rather trust the players, the independent players, to unionize and collectively assert themselves as a talent pool. I'm much more in favor of that. Or we live in the most vibrant time in the history of pro wrestling. You look at guys like Nick Aldis and Thunder Rosa. They've had some exposure on some big time shows, most recently with Thunder Rosa on AEW and Nick Aldis with Impact. but they are redefining the game on the strength of their brand, their individual brands. And it's like Nick Aldis was saying the other day on a show. He was like, look, I'm not going to entertain wrestlers they have to be very savvy today. They have to be technologically savvy. The world is no longer big enough for wrestlers who aren't tech savvy and can't produce their own content and make their own brand and augment it with all these things. And that's what it's going to take, right? But now the studio is in your own garage, like I am right now, and you guys are. Like Ricky Starks, who was noticed because he cut his own promo and all that. That's where the battles are won and lost today. And wrestlers, by all means, have every right to unionize and to assert themselves that way. But that's far preferable to looking to the government for intervention. If you want the government to do that, you're dancing with a very dangerous and fickle partner who ultimately does not care. They don't care.
Yeah. I'm seeing the chat like Jesse Ventura being brought up and stuff. This is something he's often talked about and even discussed back in the day. It's like reportedly even possibly some of the issues that he's had with Vince over the years and that sort of thing. But I feel like I've heard him even say like he thought that the ultimate thing was like, Hogan wasn't going to get on board with that. And so like with the union or anything like that. And that's probably at the end of the day, probably what it's going to take is like, I don't even know if Roman Reigns is big enough. Like it'd have to be like a John Cena has to bust back on the scene and like start pushing. Somebody who doesn't care, I would imagine, would be the person that could empower people enough to want to say something. Front Row's mentioning to me in the chat that recently UK wrestlers have become members of union equity, and they're recognized as performers now, like on a show. So they've been able to accomplish it. It's probably coming down the line for professional wrestlers. I would imagine they're not going to be able to keep doing this forever. I know that just Tony Khan and AEW stepping into the picture has raised, the pay for wrestlers.
That's right. There you go. That would be my counter argument to anybody who would argue otherwise. You have Tony Khan with his resources and his own venture stepping in without any assistance or anything, and he has, just by the strength of that, elevated wrestler pay across the spectrum. It's like J. Cal always says, rising tides raise all ships. And that's the best thing. And I just saw the comment in the chat about when you have the government intervening, then suddenly everybody is just an entity, and they will not differentiate. They'll throw out regulations and standards that will ultimately strip and drown and smother independent professional wrestling, and that's something we don't want to do, because independent wrestling is the wellspring. It's the that's our farm, and you have to do anything to protect them. Anytime, I'm gonna tell you, private players can do anything better than the government can do 100% of the time, including national defense. 100% of the time, they can do anything better than the government can do. Anything.
Yeah. So speaking of legal stuff, I mean, if you want to get into it, did you see Joey Ryan is filing 2 multi-million-dollar lawsuits in California's Central District Court in Los Angeles for libel and slander? The first one's against 3 of his accusers. All of the women wrestlers who came forward, all of them were some of the women wrestlers who came forward against him, one of whom supposedly works for a major promotion, and all 3 of whom would be relatively well-known among hardcore wrestling fans. And he's basically accusing them for false stories. He's saying he's missing out on $20,000 per month. He's charging that back to like June 21st, I think. But just an interesting side note as a piece of news. I don't know if either one of you want to comment on that, but
I don't have a comment to make. I mean, it's unfortunate, but
I think that if people were wronged in that they should be vindicated. And I think if there were women that were wronged, then Joey Ryan should pay the price. And he has every right to seek recourse to the justice system if he feels like he's got an argument. But I think that victims need to be respected and they need to be vindicated. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm just saying whoever was wrong needs to be righted.
There. That's a good, I think, level way of handling this, Rob.
This is the most politically correct you've ever been, Rob. We should toss some more political questions at Rob so we can get these nice straight answers.
I've got daughters, man. I've got daughters, so I tend to sympathize with women.
You're gonna have to.
I hear you. Well, speaking of daughters, John Farmer's always in the chat, and we love having him around sometimes when he's able to join it. And his daughter, Kaylee Farmer, better known as Camille in the NWA, just won the NPC Daytona Beach Classic Bodybuilding Championships on September 26th. It's like a bikini contest with heels and the emphasis on muscularity. It's a bodybuilding contest, of course, but it's kind of a mix of like a pageant bodybuilding contest, from my understanding. And not only did she win, though, the moment she won, she was asked to stay out for another award, and then Tom Latimer comes out and asks her to marry him, and she accepted on stage, and there you go. Camille and Tom are officially engaged to be married. And I wanted to bring this up last week, I think, but just things got away from us. But props to Camille and Tom. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
It was awesome, man. I mean, part of my heart broke because I always dreamed of, like, when my wife leaves me, that I was going to marry Camille. But they're a lovely couple, and they deserve every good thing that happens to them, and I wish them the best.
That's good. That's good. I hope your wife never leaves you, Rob.
Yeah.
She won't, man. At this point, she's stuck, man. I mean, hey, and no one ever gets over Robbie Roode. Just ask Gary. We didn't talk for those 2 weeks. He kept crazy bitch texting me. Text. Let's get help.
Camille would toss Rob around like a blow-up doll.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to see that, like, right after the engagement, there was a photo from both of them. I can't remember which account it was from, but it was of Camille getting some cheeseburger, like a nice, huge-ass double-decker cheeseburger. Because I'm like, man, please, because you can't just have superhero body type all the time. That's insane.
Man, she did look like a superhero.
Oh, yeah. When you saw her on UWN, I mean, good Lord, when she took on Heather Monroe, like, has there ever been like a more chiseled person than she looked like then? It was incredible.
I'm going to tell you, one of the most endearing things about Camille to me is like how much she deeply loves Tom Latimer. And I go back to one of our talent calls. I don't know, you guys, maybe Front Row was in on that one. I'm not quite sure, but she was like so giddy because she had bought him a birthday present. And she bought him a telescope because he loves aliens and he loves dinosaurs. And she bought him this telescope so they could, like, this, hunt out aliens and stuff. And I was like, you are awesome. And Tom Latimer, and she's lucky too. Tom's a good find, but he's so lucky to have her, man. I wish them the best.
Saying, telling a guy you're lucky to have her is an interesting way of saying I want your girlfriend.
I also love the arc of this episode where we went from like these deep political issues to like some dating reviews and
Hey, this thing's all over the place. I love it.
Listen, we bring you everything here at This Is the NWA.
I feel like sometimes when it gets too hot, we gotta cool it off a little bit with some just some light conversation. Let's do some Impact news. Because I don't think last week we got to talk about the fact that Ken Shamrock is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion Ken Shamrock is getting inducted into the Impact Hall of Fame on October 24th. And he was talking about on Twitter that his feud with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was one of the highlights of his career. And he asked The Rock on Twitter, like, hey, man, I'm getting inducted to the thing. Would you do something for it? And The Rock wrote him back and said, yeah, I'll do it. You'll have a video this weekend or something like that. And that's pretty amazing. That's cool with The Rock. And you can tell, I guess, Fitz has nothing to do with him anymore because Sounds like The Rock's cool with it. He didn't give a crap.
Yeah.
Well, The Rock's bigger than Vince, so they're trying to encourage the Rock to run for president. So The Rock he's earned the position to be able to do whatever the freak he wants to do, and he loves wrestling, and he's a great one. And so I think that's fantastic. I love it, man.
Yeah. Speaking of, I guess it's worth mentioning too that he did announce this past week, I think, that the XFL would be returning in the spring of 2022. So talk about being bigger than Vince McMahon. He's also going to try to do this thing that Vince McMahon couldn't make happen. When he purchased it, they were talking about having it restart in 2021. But I think because of the uncertainties with COVID and everything and being able to put people in the stands, that kind of interrupted negotiating the television deals and that sort of thing. So, whatever. They didn't want to afford any losses. They just spent like $80 million or something. So I guess they could probably afford it, but whatever. They just decided this year wasn't feasible for the XFL. So you got to wait till 2022, Rob, to watch the XFL.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, the Rock is a former football player. He knows what he's doing. You don't put Vince McMahon in charge of football any more than you put Jim Hurd, a pizza guy, in charge of the WCW. You know what I mean? So the Rock is going to succeed.
I like it. You have a deep rooted bitterness still to this day about Hurd. I like it.
He tried to make Ric Flair shave his head and call himself Spartacus. I'm like, to Ric Flair? I was like, you're a freaking dickwad. You're a cockmaster, and you don't need to be in wrestling. I'm sorry. You're a dick master. You cannot be. You got better.
Just
stop. Okay.
You're making it worse.
You're a penis master.
Still going. Quick, mute him here.
No, I'm happy with this. This is good TV. Just let Rob go. All right. Well, there's just the discussions happening in the chat. We'll go ahead and bring this one up right now. William Patrick Corgan on September 30th put out a thing about Power. Obviously, he was celebrating, like a lot of us were, the year anniversary from the first day of tapings of NWA Power. He said, and I quote, for all of you who did not get to see it, "1 year ago, we shot our first episode of NWA Power. Suffice to say, it has been a crazy ride ever since. From trending #1 worldwide on our debut to successful pay-per-views to having to stop many plans, including the Crockett Cup, due to the plague, to Rosa appearing with the NWA Women's Championship on All Elite Wrestling, to now adding our voice to the collective that is Primetime Live on the United Wrestling Network, I can only say to our great fans, hang in there. We are currently talking about bringing back Power very soon, even if it means we can't have fans in the stands because we just want to get back to work. But it's nice to see our friend and former champion Tim Storm here. If anyone can lead us out of this, it's a man or woman like him who gives it all he or she's got, even when the chips are down." Obviously, he's got a picture of Tim Storm with this. That's why that would make more sense if you could see this. That sounds more grim than I mean it, because, yeah, still here, still kicking, and ready to rock. So essentially, Billy Corgan announcing they've still got plans to get Power back on the road. And even if they can't do it with fans, which was initially kind of the thing they were saying, like, hey, Power doesn't work in the studio without fans. We don't really want to do that, but they're kind of backtracking on that a little bit. And I don't mean that in a negative way, by the way, because, I'm ready for Power to come back too. And, of course, on the Nation show, Nick Aldis was just on there as well, if you guys missed that. And as well as Thunder Rosa. And he spoke about that a little bit. And he said that he kind of hinted at that you could expect some news on that soon on that show. So I think that's okay to point out as well. We've seen the surveys going out with a lot of questions about who their audience is and how much interest there is. So I think it's all that's all part of this bigger plan.
Yeah, well, I think that, one, we don't want to. I still stand by the original philosophy of we need to have fans in the stands. What that means, if you don't, obviously we're going to support whatever they do because we need the NWA flagship show back. And if it's UWN, that's great because I've been very pleased with what they've done. But I think that we've got to look at a scenario where possibly you've got maybe limited fans in the audience. I mean, just power is about the fans, and it's about the fans being in there. So if you have to social distance and limit it to a quarter capacity or whatever, that's how I'd like to see it. But ultimately, I'm for whatever. I want to see it back. There was the whole question about Sandoval being the representative fan, and I would get behind that for sure. Yeah, but I'm very, very encouraged by Corgan and his statement, and we're gonna, we've been saying it the whole time, guys. Everybody was out there heralding the death of the NWA, but who was here? Front row, your bearded trio, wrestling with the MMA. We've been here the whole time saying NWA is coming back, guys. It ain't going nowhere. It's coming back. It's just it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Exactly. And if it's at GPB, we're going to be there. We will sneak in.
We're going to be outside.
We'll hide out in the bathroom. We'll camp out.
Yeah. We'll just be outside grilling hot dogs, hanging out.
Let's see. The front row saying Mr. Corgan said on the Cardiland call that the music industry contacts he has said it might be late 2021 before they can fill a studio like GPB. So this makes sense. John Stallman says if Shane Douglas can't kill the NWA, COVID isn't. There you go. That's the way to look at it. But yeah, we could make this happen. We'll still have like power parties. Maybe we could just like have them.
We'll be out there. We'll be out there outside the GPB studios. We'll set up. We'll get us a little MiFi, and we'll set up. And I know that Will does the SEO things on the play box, and we'll do live commentary outside the show, man. Outside the studio, we'll have it. Front row will be there. We'll have our group outside where it's safe. It's going to happen, and we will be there when it happens. Promise you. Just like I'm going to be in Buda, Texas, I promise you. Whether they have fans in GPB or not, I'm going to be there. I will be there.
Yep. Roscoe says, I like Sandoval, but he is a fan and doesn't belong to be a part of the actual wrestling. People need to stop trying to get fans to be part of the actual wrestling. Rob?
Roscoe, zip it, man. I love you. But the fans are part of wrestling. Sandoval is a part of wrestling. The GPB fan base at Power is the 12th man. They are a part of wrestling. And if you don't like that, then you don't like the style that we do in the studio in the NWA. But Masked Fan is a part of it. Heather Hunley's a part of it. Polka Dot Pam's a part of it. Gary Horn's a part of it. My family's a part of it. Adam Rotella's a part of it. They are a part of it. It is a part of wrestling. And that's your opinion, bro. Your opinions are like buttholes. We all got them. But I'm going to tell you, as a matter of fact, the way it's happened and the way that was the coolest brand for a long, long time has been the fans interacting with wrestling. Sandoval is a part of it, and he should be.
The thing is, the first thing that came to my mind too is that like that's a tradition actually with like the studio wrestling too. That did not start with Sandoval. That's been back to the 70s and 80s, right? Like, there was like the old lady who was always in the studio. Like, I forget her name. Like they even gave her a name, and there's always been like these fans that stand out that always, even WWE had Side Guy and all of that stuff. Like there's always been like the fans that stand out.
And Dusty Rhodes, he brought, what was her name, man? The beautiful, beautiful African-American woman who was Sapphire brought her in. That wasn't a work. That was something that like the fans bought into that. And who made the Four Horsemen? Fans made the Four Horsemen. Arn Anderson came out and said it just on a whim. And the next week, the fans were out there in suit and ties holding up Four Horsemen signs, and the community responded to that. And Roscoe, I may be misunderstanding what you're saying. And brother, you're free to your opinion, dude. This is an open forum. Don't feel like we're trying to bully you or anything. I respect you. But I'm going to tell you right now, I believe that in our brand of wrestling, what makes each of us, the three of us, the Bearded Trio, so much a part of this is the fact that Nick Aldis gave us the time of day. Thunder Rosa gives us the time of day. She was in our chat this evening. Brian Rosa was in our chat this evening. We've had everybody who chose to give us the time of day of fans because they care about how we react and how we respond. And maybe it's not the case in WWE or whatever, but historically, generally speaking, the fans are very much a part of this equation, and they ought to be. Sandoval, I would love to see Sandoval versus freaking just Josephus. They had their little entanglement. I would pay to see it, man.
Heck yeah. I mean, they put Sandoval like right outside there managing a match. He climbed up in the ring, which nobody wanted, and Billy still talks about that. But yeah, so I'm totally on board with fans. Like sometimes that's the exciting part of the show is like the fans you're always used to seeing, and it makes it feel like home. And of course, Woodland Goblin mentioning the girls in the stands in the '80s on Georgia Championship Wrestling, and ECW had a water boy in the ring even, and yeah, this is tradition. The fans have always existed, and I remember going to Monday Night Raw and getting excited because I was seated behind Sign Guy and like meeting him and getting a picture with him. Just the red hat and the blue shirt and the collared shirt or whatever. But anyway, all right. What else news-wise do we have to talk about? Let's see here. Back to Impact. Rob Van Dam and Katie Forbes are no longer with the company. So I think he was just on a short-term deal, but who knows where that guy will show up. And Rob, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. Access TV will be doing a whole Impact week to build for Bound for Glory on pay-per-view. It will start with Carl. Wait, did that just happen? Is that the one that just happened? No, that's coming up. It'll start with Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows on Tuesday, October 20th at 10 p.m. Talking Shop Full Keg. Is that the one that you are talking about earlier?
Yeah, that's it. And
okay.
Talking Shop is there's a loose affiliation there. We had Scott D'Amore there the other night. You guys saw it, when we were at the Turnbuckle Bar and Grill, Paulie's wrestling bar there here in Ringgold, Georgia. But Impact, man, and they whatever they got. I mean, this whole thing with the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson, the Machine Gun, Heath Slater, Doc Gallows. You're talking about a venture. We talked about, people being players and independent players and trying to reshape wrestling. That's what this is all about right now. So much so that they've got the interest of Impact, and Scott D'Amore is following them around and is interested in this and putting up money to support this project. So it is now. A lot of traditionalists, like I think probably Roscoe and some other guys in the chat, might not like this so much because it's sort of kids, it's sort of sketch comedy. But that's the point. The point is, in the absence of being able to perform on the WWE arena, on the WWE stage, and in the absence of having the ability to go into this venue or that venue or whatever, they're going to do their own thing and they're going to poke fun at themselves. This is like Saturday Night Live. And it's so horrible that it's fantastic. You cannot stop thinking about it. I mean, it's so good. I mean, it's so bad, it's great. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's like the movie I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. Terrible movie, horrible movie, fantastic movie, all at the same time. It's one of the great comedy movies of all time. So, yeah, we got this coming up. I think they're showing this out on Fight TV coming in November. They're filming this next week, I believe. I was just talking to Paul last night about it, and we had a guest on Piper's Notes a few weeks ago, the Ultimate Pusher Tyreek, who's managing Luke Gallows and is involved in this. I mean, it's going to be cool, man. And it's just fun and games. Nobody's taking it seriously. It's just a way to kind of celebrate wrestling and poke fun at themselves and kind of satirize the business and then each of these are doing their own things that are credible. I mean, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are still out there wrestling legitimately, on the independent circuit and all that. But this is a time for them to kind of let their hair down and just, remind themselves that, hey, let's not take ourselves too seriously. Let's have fun with it. And there you go.
Will, you all right over there, buddy?
Oh, yeah. I'm just soaking it in. I'm just, watching the debate in the chat. And I love it when we talk about comedy and wrestling and just seeing the great divide here. And, hey, Rob said it. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. And it's definitely a divisive issue. But, I'm of the belief that, wrestling it is, as much as you hate to say this word in light of WWE, it's entertainment. and it is simulated combat sports, and there's an entertainment aspect to that. And these guys aren't trying to intertwine that with Impact storylines or anything. They're going out and they're doing their own thing, and it's for a specific purpose. And literally, if you don't like it, don't watch it. You don't have to. You're not forced to watch it. So, it's something that has an audience and it has value, and it's great.
And I see Roscoe's comments in the chat, man. And again, I appreciate the debate in here. This is what we do, man. I love it. But Roscoe's like, why can't people just put on good wrestling? And I'm like, well, they are. There's a lot of good wrestling out there that people are putting on. I think, why can't people from time to time let their hair down, like Will said, do something that's not on a show that's affecting anything, impacting, no pun intended. They're out there just satirizing. They're out there trying to make a, just to add some levity to this very dark time that we're living in here in 2020. But to answer your question, Roscoe, why can't people just put on good wrestling? They do it every day. NXT does it weekly. AEW does it weekly. UWN does it weekly. Lots of shows out there are putting on good wrestling. The world is big enough for a little fun and humor from time to time. If you don't intertwine the two, I think that's the best. And I understand where you're coming from, Roscoe. But like Will said, they're not trying to do that. They're not trying to discredit the sport. They're all still working and out there doing their stuff and doing their rounds. But this is a point, Talking Shop-A-Mania isn't about that. It's about, it's sketch comedy. That's all it is. It's sketch comedy meets pro wrestling. The world is big enough for that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that they're in any way trying to take themselves too seriously when they do what they do. I think they're pretty clear about what they are. So if it's not your thing, you just don't watch it. Basically.
Yeah,
that's
and James Lawrence mentions Southpaw Regional Wrestling and that kind of satire show that was on the WWE Network. I mean, that was the same way. It was great. It didn't ruin wrestling. It was something for fans who wanted something a little comedy oriented to watch and to be entertained by. It's not. If you think that can tarnish the great sport of professional wrestling, then you have too narrow a view of professional wrestling. That's my take on it.
Yeah, well, and even thinking about it now, I was just thinking about am I being hypocritical in my views? But I think I still stand pretty firmly that the big thing for me is at the end of the day, does it look like the people in the ring are trying to win a match? Are they trying to win titles? Are they, that's the part that probably matters the most in regards to in a serious wrestling show, I suppose. So when I look back at a Gentleman Jervis or something like that, is Gentleman Jervis trying to win the match? Then, maybe he's not my taste, but maybe it still makes sense. I don't know. I was watching American football today, and those guys they'd be goofing off out there sometimes too, and especially during a touchdown. They're still trying to win the game, but they will try to put on a show in the middle of it, and they pick up a lot of their stuff from professional wrestling too. So I think as long as they're out there and they're still trying to win the game, then whatever.
Yeah, and I understand where Roscoe's coming from, and James Lawrence has been saying this for weeks. I mean, we want, like you guys said, we want simulated combat sports. We want prize fighting, but we get that, and UWN, for the most part, with the exception of the Gentleman Jervis thing, and then with the Robert Baines thing, which even that wasn't an assault on prize fight wrestling. I just didn't like the gimmick. I'm still talented, and Jervis is still talented. And there's a place for that, but I don't think that you're damaging prize fighting. I mean, I think the NWA is still solid and intact. I think the AWA or the AEW championship division is intact. I think what they're doing in championship wrestling from Hollywood, Memphis, and Arizona is intact. I mean, no one's damaging it. And then it just becomes a matter of taste and preference. And, there were things about Talking Shop-A-Mania that I thought were corny, but there were things that I thought were freaking hilarious. For example, the 5-minute ring entrance of Paul Lee was amazing. Him walking by what he thought was Maria Kanellis, and it turning out to be not her. I thought that was just hilarious. I spit my drink out, man. And there's a lot of really funny things in it, and it's good to see some levity here. But I get Roscoe's point. I mean, we want to preserve pro wrestling and prize fight wrestling, but I think we really do that. I don't think that anything is – there's no harm, no foul, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. And we can talk more about this as we go on, not to belay the point, but like, I've got like one other piece of news and we can wrap the podcast portion of this show up and then we can move on. And really, this is just a minor piece of news. And then I'd really like to hit on Mission Pro one more time if we could, just since we're sponsoring them and we love them so much. But this last piece involves Thunder Rosa anyway. She was on the Wrestling Inc. Daily podcast. And it was interesting because AEW star Sonny Kiss had just recently revealed that Lucha Underground talent were only making $4,000 a year. And Rosa confirmed the low pay of the talent and the frustration she had with Lucha Underground. She said, quote, "Listen, contracts are tricky. If you don't have a lawyer or you're too cheap to pay a lawyer, you're screwed. I signed that contract knowing that I was locked in for 5 seasons. The problem was when some of us were not getting work in other places. And we were asking for work and they're not giving us work. And then we're trying to get out so we can work. They're like, no, you can't work anywhere." So it was very frustrating that a year and a half, like literally I have to bust my ass getting paid $100 to $150 to make a living because I couldn't effing do anything on TV. Sorry for my language, but I'm going to be open and honest about it. It was very hard. Rosa continued revealing that the way talents were valued by Lucha Underground with inadequate treatment, the way they were valued by Lucha Underground with inadequate treatment as well as the schedule. She pointed out that the talent endured it because they knew a bigger opportunity would be on its way. She says that this is the thing. We used to stay at the Hilton in downtown LA, treated like freaking queens and get all this stuff. Then the next week we'll be working an indie show and people wouldn't even give us a freaking hotel room because they didn't see we had the value. And imagine people are knocking on our doors trying to get us to go work TV, and I can't do it because I'm under contract. So I had to endure this because I knew something bigger was coming. So when the opportunity came to get on that lawsuit, I jumped in right away. But she's pointed out previously that she received an offer from WWE as a referee, but she turned it down to pursue the MMA thing. And she even commented towards Vampiro's comments that Lucha Underground talent knew what they were getting into when they signed their contracts. She says, I said this, we signed the contract because we wanted an opportunity. A lot of us were hungry. A lot of us were new. We just wanted to be seen. We wanted that stage for us to get to the next level, which for me didn't pan out because I was wearing a mask. If I had been Thunder Rosa and Lucha Underground, I'd probably be in WWE by now. I mean, honestly, I did 1 month in AEW and I already had a following that we've been working really, really hard to build, and then it just exploded. Why? Because they saw who I really am, which is Thunder Rosa. And with the stuff from Lucha Underground, we asked for work, we asked for opportunities. Some people were getting them. I was one of the ones that was getting the short end of the stick. I don't care. I was getting absolutely nothing. What was there for me? Why am I going to be sitting around no, I just want to work. Can I work? And if you guys allow me to work, fine. If not, there's nothing for me here. There's nothing wrong about that. Anyway, I probably delved into that too much, but basically you should check out that podcast. But Rosa essentially saying that because her face was covered up and they weren't putting her on enough and that sort of thing. It was just interesting hearing her discuss the Lucha Underground thing.
I like Lucha Underground. I loved it. I think for a while it was some of the best thing going out there. But she's right. I mean, Thunder Rosa is best when she is herself, when she's not Cobra Moon under a mask playing a role. I think anybody would say that. And now the proof is in the pudding. I mean, look at her now. She's the hottest name in the world, bar none, of anybody. And she's absolutely spot on. I do want to bring up another point about the front row show yesterday with Nick Aldis and Thunder Rosa before we move to the live chat and the after show.
I'd rather you not talk about them if you could. I'm just kidding.
What's that?
I was just saying, let's not put them over if possible. Not the Busted Open, not the Nation show, not front row. None of those people. They have their own YouTube. You guys should check out and not listen to us.
Yeah, they're using third party platforms that we just can't do business with. So
I don't even know where we're going with that, man. We're getting into SEBs and all that stuff now. PTO.
Oh, Rob's all about SEO, y'all. Anyway, no, go ahead and talk. I was just kidding. Put over the Busted Open.
That was so good, man. They had both champs out there, but I wanted to point out and maybe Front Row has more to say about this, but if I'm not mistaken, Dan Severn called out Nick Aldis.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually true. Yeah, Dan Severn just talked about not actually losing the NWA title, and that he just kind of, when it moved to TNA, that he just kind of had to drop it. J. Cal actually gave us a little insight on that in our Discord. If you guys aren't a part of that, you should definitely join. That Severn was kind of ended up being sent to, was it Japan, to who was holding it at the time. It was kind of like what's the word? I don't know what I'm looking for, but he was like the gang member that got sent over to like do the job, like as in do the job, like I'll kill you, give me this belt, like that kind of thing. And so he was there to get the belt and bring it back to the States, and he was hired to do the hit, basically. That's what he did, and then he had to drop the title, so he never really lost it. So he had something to say about Nick Aldis as the champion.
They're out there fighting for the title that he never lost, man. So,
yeah, pretty interesting.
I'm just laughing at Brian Rose's comment.
What, that Dan Severn is 105 years old?
Yeah, that got me. Oh.
I always thought he was, I don't know how old Dan Severn really is, but I know that he always looks the exact same every time I've seen him. He's one of those guys.
He's an MMA guy. Thunder Rosa's an MMA guy. They're badasses. I don't care how old they are. Thunder Rosa can be 105, and she's still going to whoop 98% of women's butts out there,
Yeah, Severn is 62, so that is a little old. I mean, he could come in and try to beat Tim Storm's record as the oldest NWA World Heavyweight Champion. So there you go. But he was a legit tough guy, or is a legit tough guy. So according to the Nation Show, he's still training MMA to this day. Like literally on the way to the gym as he was having that interview. He was driving the car with his knees. That's how badass he is. He didn't even care. He was just like,
and if I'm not mistaken, I think Aldis accepted the challenge or said he would be open to the challenge. So I'm just throwing, anything's possible. I'm not saying it. You got Trevor Murdoch, you got Mike Bennett, you got a lot of guys out there that deserve a shot. And Severn has been a long time, but I think that Aldis said he was open to the challenge. So I'm just saying. I don't mean to stir the pot.
Well, it's interesting to see. Like, would Dan Severn really step up for the occasion? There's shows out there to make it happen. I'd like to see Brian Rosa versus Nick Aldis personally, but we'll have to hold on and see.
Same height, man. Brian Rosa is. I went into at Mission Pro, man. I was expecting him to be about Gary's height, about 4'6". I walked out. Brian Rosa was taller than a mug, man. This Joker's like 6 foot. He's close to 6 foot or over. He's tall. I come up to his nipples.
Wait, and I'm 4'11". What are you talking about?
Well, when you came out with them little stubby legs, boy, and to give me a big hug. Woo!
All right.
Rob, I'll tell you this: when Rob commits to a joke, he really commits to it, and you gotta, as annoying as that might be, you gotta respect it a little bit. So,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. When you're a man of my height, of 4'11", you really appreciate a fella who uses Manscaped.com. And if you guys haven't checked out Manscaped.com, they they're the best in the world for tools to groom your family jewels, so to speak. And with the code NWAPod, you can get 20% off and free shipping right now at Manscaped.com. So go check them out. And we're going to close this thing out. Just say, if you hear us talking about Brian Rosa and you're wondering who we're talking about Thunder Rosa's husband, who is always in the chat here with us live. And that's where you want to be. You want to be with us live because it's a lot more fun. You get to hang out with all these cool people in the chat. And they've got a great show coming up. We've talked about it already, but it doesn't hurt to mention it again because, like I said, we're going to keep doing it. November 6th, Tournament Out of Hell. You want to watch that? Mission Pro Wrestling. All of the stars are going to be there. We've made our predictions. Rachel Rose or Maddie Rinkowski. I'm throwing La Rosa Negra in there just because I interviewed Rachel and Maddie already for the last show, and so I feel guilty not including them in this. But La Rosa Negra's good, man. She's real good, and she's going to be the one to beat. But anyway, you got to let us know who you think is going to be the first NPW champion. As time goes on, we're going to find out more about this tournament, how it's shaping up. Maybe we'll even have some fun and make our brackets up and some predictions. That'll be cool. And we'll see who the best is at predicting these things. But make sure if you haven't already, check out Title Match Network. That's where you can watch this thing. And it's a great little network there. They've got a lot of other stuff besides just Mission Pro Wrestling. They got other companies, other federations. They've got shoot interviews, all kinds of stuff on there. And it's only $9.99 a month. So if you're sick of WWE, like all of us are, you should check it out. My subscription ends tomorrow with WWE Network, by the way.
Yeah, they're good. Put that resources elsewhere. Let me say, too, about Mission Pro. Guys, we're going to be putting Mission Pro over a lot because they're that good and they deserve it. And we're a sponsor of Mission Pro, and this I'm so proud of that. Seeing that beautiful Mission Pro poster, Tournament of Hell, come out with the NWA. This is the NWA logo on there, man. I'm so proud of that association. But I want to just tip my hat to Brian Rosa, not because he's in the chat, but also because he's in the chat. This is a women's only promotion, and these women are busting their tails. But they're not, don't get me wrong. You go in there, they're not forcing some kind of agenda down somebody's throat. They're celebrating women's wrestling. But there is a man involved in that too, and that's Brian Rosa. Brian Rosa is very hard at work supporting this, promoting this, supporting his beautiful wife, Thunder Rosa, our world champ. And he deserves all the credit in the world for his hand in this. And I just don't want him to get missed in all this because he's not going to put himself over. Brian Rosa's, and he's not going to say anything now. But he's so humble. He was completely courteous and an absolute gentleman to us. Gave me a water hose out there.
What do you mean? What do you mean he's not going to say anything now? He literally just put in the chat room, "Bitch, I don't hide behind nobody."
I don't think he was talking about this conversation.
Yeah. I want to put over Mission Pro, those amazing women, and the force that they're putting together. And I hope it lasts forever, and we're going to be with them until we're going to be with them forever. And two, I want to put over Brian Rosa for being behind the scenes, doing what he can do to get this Joker running and to support his amazing wife and to be a backbone behind this. And we're just happy to be partners with him. We're so humbled that he's always here in the chat with us. We love his company, and I love this guy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hate to put over Brian Rosa, but that probably just marked the 105th time that we've said his name during this show today. So I think that Brian knows we love him. I hope so. We do. He says brackets are coming this week. So that's going to be exciting. We're going to see how this thing plays out. This is going to be fun. I want to see who's actually in the tournament and what the first round looks like. And then that can help us gauge where this thing's going. But we'll be talking about it on this show, I guarantee you. So you got to stay tuned. And we're going to wrap up the podcast portion of that thing, or this thing, right now. Thank you guys for listening. If you're listening, if you want to stay for the rest of the show, you got to join us live because we go even longer with the live crowd. We talk to the chat room. We talk about whatever comes up, any of the wrestling stuff. Nothing's off limits. Sometimes it's not even about wrestling. Sometimes Rob just be on his bullshit about something else. So,
impressionism, man.
Yeah. So you got to join us. But Rob, where are you on the social media if people want to hear your garbage?
Well, they can just look down below me and see that where it says "This is Dr. Stinson" on all my social.
They might be listening on podcasts, so they can't.
Good point. So that's why I said "This is Dr. Stinson," so they can type it into their key pages or their keyboards. You can find me there on what are we on Twitter? We're on Tumblr. Are we on Tumblr?
Nope.
No. Do you think that if people type in Doc Stinson in Google that Stinson's SEO's up to speed?
Well, we'll check it out. Let's check it out right here.
Check my PMs too, man.
Doc Stinson obituary. Hello. Okay. That's not you, I guess. I don't know. No, it's a lot of obituaries. It's not you, Rob. We got to work on your SEO, bud.
Yeah.
Don't worry. There's like shots you can take and stuff.
Yeah,
You'll be
that's
fine.
what she said.
I'll set up a consultation with you.
Yeah, $100 an hour. It's quality information right there you could get, Rob. Will, where are you on the social medias for people that want wrestling news and rumors and, of course, SEO expertise?
Absolutely. I am at Hey It's Will with one L on all the social media platforms. If you want to see everything I got going on, you can now just go to heyitswill.com, and there's a nice little links page where you can see all the stuff going on with this show.
Will have made his own website apart from us. He's
You got
breaking
your own
off, Rob.
website?
It's not a website. It's like a link tree. It's just a bunch of links. It's not like, chill out, Rob. God, I made up a website. We're good.
Hey,
It's not as cool. It's not as cool as our website. I'll say that. But it's just links to everything I got going on. If you want to connect all the socials. Do I have merchandise? No. I mean, we have merchandise. Hashtag NWA Fam official online store. Check that out. That link is
Like
on
that.
there. So yeah.
You guys check that out. That's some good stuff. This is Gary Hoare. The show's at the NWA Pod on all of the socials and everything. Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate every single one of you. If you get a chance, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It helps us get in front of more people. Also, come like the YouTube page. It's youtube.com/the NWA Pod. You hit the little bell, it'll let you know every time we go live, and you can be here in the chat with all these lovely, beautiful people. And it's a lot of fun doing that too. And you can be mentioned on the show, just like Roscoe. We want to talk crap about somebody. Anyway, that's it for this week on the podcast portion of the show. Until next time, enjoy your gravy cake. Yeah.
We did it.
We did it. We did that part. What?
Roscoe. It's like, what?
I don't know what Dr. Red's doing in the chat, but I had to bring that up here. I don't know what's anyway. All right. Blue Demon Jr. also stated he wanted another shot at the title. Yeah, that's true. I think Aldous was on our show, and he mentioned that was Blue Demon Jr. going into business for himself. I feel like that was at least an interview I've done where he was there, and he told me that he was like, yeah, he's like, yeah, that was just out of nowhere. Like there were no plans for that. That was just like Blue Demon Jr. just like, I want a shot. We're like, oh, dude. All right. Brian Rose is the chat MVP. We're here now. Now it's loose. Now it's loosey goosey. Now we just hang out, chit chat about whatever you guys want to. But you got to throw topics in the chat because
We got drinks.
We're
We're in the club, guys. We in the club.
Roscoe, I am not talking to you about Donald Trump. Not in this show. We got some quality topics.
Y'all looking at me. Y'all both look at me, man. Y'all were like,
oh, no, James Lawrence. Roscoe has not taken your spot as top heel. You'll always be our most hated, buddy.
But listen, hey, you can hold your head up high because it's not cheap heat, man. You've earned all of it, and so you're an integral part of this show, James Lawrence.
Yep. We talked about AEW today, and James Lawrence just like didn't even have anything nasty to say.
hey, man, I'm so proud of James Lawrence, man. I don't know if he was here last time, but I was just kind of watching in one day. I was at work at school. I didn't have time to involve myself personally, but I was looking at him debating somebody about the NWA, and he said, let me tell you something. The NWA is a meta promotion. And I was like, James Lawrence, bro, you just melted my heart, man. That's what we've been arguing for months and months and months. Thank you. So, I wasn't talking about your nipples. They came up. They came up. I ain't gonna lie. They're magnificent nipples, man.
That is true. Rob definitely did. You don't want to know all the. He was private chatting us most of what he was saying about your nipples. So at least on the show, he kept it G-rated. Front row's on cigar number 2 and just opened a box of wine. Let's go. Let's get it on.
LFG, baby.
Wow.
Y'all gonna have to talk for a second though, because I gotta pee. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm just gonna do it.
What are we going
Or
to
as
say?
Rob would send it. This is the point where Rob would normally send us in the chat, Dookie. That's what he says. Just so you know. But I'll be RB.
Rob, so we'll chat. Were you doing some wrestling related stuff this weekend? I saw some activity on the socials. What did you have going on? Looked like Robbie Roode made an appearance over the weekend.
Yes. One of the great promotions here in Georgia. There are 2 really good ones. I mean, there's a bunch of good ones, but you got Southern Honor that's winning awards week after week, and then you've got the American Wrestling Federation, which I've been privileged to be a part of for many years, since about 2005, 2006, and it is the promotion run by the real Nature Boy Paul Lee. Great guy, very close friend. We actually are neighbors, and I love the guy. He's one of my best friends in the world, you know. But we had a match on the opening of the show last night where Brian Valor, follow him on social media, is a great talent. I think the sky's the limit for him, but he holds a championship called the Tennessee State Championship. And Tennessee is a very important region for pro wrestling. I mean, this is the region of tried and true. You got guys like Alex Taylor coming out of there. You got Jeremiah Plunkett. You've got Aiden Wright. You've got, of course, Tom Latimer is in Tennessee. Nick Aldis lives in Tennessee. He has multiple houses, but one of them's in Tennessee. Tennessee is such a vibrant area, and Brian Valor holds the Tennessee State Championship. And he defended that in the first round, or the first match against King Shane Williams, who just very recently at AML wrestled Nick Aldis for the 10 pounds of gold. And Brian Valor is just a man of virtue, dignity, integrity. And he came out and, he talked to me before the match. And was like, I don't trust the officiating here in the AEW. There's only one man that I trust with the wisdom and the ability to officiate this match right down the middle, fair and balanced, like what needs to happen. And that's none other than Robbie Roode. And so I got to officiate that match last night between Shane Williams and Brian Valor. Cool. And so, it was awesome. And then got to meet Scary Steve, man, from Impact, and just really talented guy, legally blind, cannot see. He's just a very humble guy, beautiful family, and came in, worked a masterful match last night with Lex Lee and Alex Taylor, and just had a great show. And the more we see out of them, the better. So it was a good weekend for wrestling.
Nice.
Want to say a quick good night to Dr. Red Tyler. Trust him.
Good night,
Part
sir.
of the
Joining.
Part of the hashtag NWA fam. We love our Dr. Red.
I feel like something just came up in the chat that I was going to hit on, and then I lost it. Yeah, Rob was just filling us in on his wrestling activity over the weekend. He officiated a match, which was pretty cool. So, I know what I was going to say. Talking about the state championships, and I know this is like, the Tennessee one that you just mentioned is still in existence. But man, I guess without having territories like we did in the territory days, those are kind of a long shot. But I just love the idea of state championships. I think that's such a cool thing. I'm glad it's still going on in your neck of the woods, Rob. I would love to see more of that. I don't know if there's a South Carolina one, Gary, here where we are, or
I mean, there's not that I'm aware of. And what's funny is, like, literally I was thinking about the same exact thing today because I was listening to the Observer podcast, and they were talking about somehow they got into a discussion about Ernie Ladd, and then they brought up the Rock's dad. and and I forget which one they said was actually like Georgia championship wrestler, or like he was like the Georgia champion or something like that. God, I wish I could remember the exact details, but I remember Meltzer talking about how like he was the first black guy to hold the Georgia championship or something like that. And he said, he's like, you could argue was like the first African-American guy to hold like a world championship. He was like, it was basically, he's like, that's what it was for this company, you know? And they were, anyway, they got into that whole discussion. I was just kind of like, man, that's kind of interesting about how, you know, it got me again thinking about how the NWA World Championship would tour around. But like, for all intents and purposes, like if you're in Georgia, the Georgia champion is the champion. Like that's the one. And so it's just, I don't know, just kind of interesting, I thought.
Yeah, there's bound to be something in South Carolina. I mean, it's wrestling. Independent wrestling is way too vibrant today. But I think of like the World Wrestling Council back in the '80s. You know, we did our TikTok a few weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, about Road Warrior Animal and the three major promotions. But there was a fourth that was regularly placed in the PWI circulation of magazines, and that was Carlos Colon's World Wrestling Council. But that was essentially a state entity. It was run out of Puerto Rico, which is an American territory. Those are U.S. citizens, and it was essentially a state championship. But the talent there was so good and so powerful that it was elevated to the rank of a world championship caliber belt. You know, up there with like International Wrestling Grand Prix and All Japan and all that stuff. And that's at a time when PWI didn't recognize the Japanese belts as world title belts. That particular title was won, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it was, but I can't think of the World Wrestling Council Championship being defended, on the mainland of the United States. But it was still a world title. It was given that status. I see World Class Championship Wrestling. For a time, they called it a world title, but I don't think it ever rose to the status of a world championship recognized by PWI and the major publications. But it had some of the best guys, and it was basically a state championship. It was the Texas state title, and even at one point, if I'm not mistaken, and I think someone can correct me. I think Woodland can correct me on this if I'm wrong. But what used to be the Texas state championship in world class eventually became the World Class Championship Wrestling world title, or it may have been. I want to think it was, but I remember there being a distinctive Texas State Championship when the Von Erichs were vying for the NWA belt, and then later them having a world championship and the Texas belt not being in the picture anymore. So I want to think that either it evolved into that title or eventually just got absorbed into the championship. So, but I love state titles, man. I think they're great.
Now I'm doing some Google research here. I found somebody selling a belt that says the SCWA South Carolina Heavyweight Wrestling Champion. So I'll have to dig into that a little bit more. But it looks like, for all intents and purposes, that the Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship was kind of the South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, had all those state flags on it. So I don't know that there really was a South Carolina state champion, which is kind of weird. I wish there was. That'd be cool.
Yeah, no doubt. I know you've got promotions in South Carolina. You have to. I mean,
yeah. There's tons of them.
So you think of I'm thinking like Georgia. Georgia is in the heart of NWA country. So obviously, but I mean that's not the point. The regional champions and the state champions would still acknowledge the women's champion and the world and the men's champion as being the overall champion. But when you think about who is the legitimate champion in the state of Georgia, you got to look at either Southern Honor or AWF. Those belts have that kind of credibility. So you just have to kind of dig and see which indie promotions in South Carolina are the ones that have the biggest following, that draw the best talent, that have the biggest social media presence, because that's important. Like Brian Rosa saying, you got 102 in Texas, probably more than that. That's just the ones I knows of. Texas is huge. So
No, it's true. I mean, I know in South Carolina we've got promotions here, and I mean, there's one here in town. I mean, and that's not even counting now whatever Austin Idol's trying to do. Yeah, I assume that when he's able, would probably love to have live events at his school and that sort of thing. That seems like what you would want to do, at least. So it's weird. Like, I feel like you'd have to get people on board, like Brian Russ was talking about the 102 people. I don't know. I mean, it always makes me wonder, like, if territories could work today. Like, if you could get if the NWA could potentially try to be like, say you had championship wrestling from Hollywood, and say you had, all of David Marquez's United Wrestling stuff. So like all of those different quote unquote territories, and then have like some federation in South Carolina or something. Everybody choose to recognize, like Nick Aldis, like AWF, choose to recognize Nick Aldis as the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. He's the real World's Champion, and then, still try to, I don't know. Vince used to make fun of it. I hear stories about Vince making fun of it all the time, like that they couldn't decide on coffee, or something like that, But it's just interesting to wonder if that stuff could take place still today.
I mean, you see something kind of analogous to it happening right now with the UWN federations. There's 4 of them there, or 3 of them. Let's see, you got Memphis, Arizona, Hollywood. So you got 3, and then the NWA working with them. And of course, the NWA has been working with AEW and Ring of Honor. There's the relationship, the historical ties between Impact and NWA. The only one that seems to not be involved in this so much is WWE. So territories are different. It's not, regional promoters owning a territory. It's, you got promotions that are sort of crossing state lines and this and that, but you still have something kind of like that going on. I think it's a good thing. I think Thunder Rosa should be free to work wherever she wants to work as often as she can. I mean, there's got to be some limitations on who gets a shot of the belt, but I think Nick Aldis should be able to take that belt around the world and defend it however often he wants to. The world's better that way. Wrestling's better that way. It only elevates the champions and cements their legacy and it builds their goodwill. But I think you have something like that going on, by analogy. It's not the same, obviously, but it's very similar.
Yeah, I always feel like, I mean, the deal is with when you're carrying a world title, like the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, like either one of them, like with Thunder Rosa or Nick Aldis, I feel like there should already be some understood trust that this person's going to do their best to make that title look strong. I mean, obviously they're the ones carrying it, so it's kind of, it's with them. It's all part of the same beast. So you want to look strong. You want it to look its best. Obviously, the NWA should have some say in like how a title match would go, before they put their stamp on it. But other than that, I mean, and appearing on, and I get the TV thing. I get there should be some discussion about if it's going to be on national television, that sort of thing. That I can understand. But otherwise, let the people wrestle, man. Let them go out there and just show their stuff. Like, I don't get why, especially right now with the NWA, like, unless I would say, yes, their bookings should take priority, like the NWA's bookings, wherever they need you to be, you need to be, but that's part of being their champion. But yeah, I don't get like denying them appearing on any indie shows anywhere. That just seems to raise the profile to me, especially, like Thunder appearing on AEW is going to do nothing but benefit the NWA, I feel like, especially as long as AEW is going to be respectful of the NWA in that championship and treat it like a legit world title. And I feel strongly that they have. I mean, literally the last time we saw Thunder Rosa on AEW, she was holding it up, standing next to Hikaru Shida, both of them together holding both of the women's championships up. I mean, what else could you ask for? I mean, you can't, I don't expect AEW to act like NWA is better, but the best you could hope for is what they did, which is certainly treat it equally.
Yeah.
And I think they did that.
Absolutely. I mean, that tag team match was phenomenal. And then for Sheeta and Thunder to be out there holding both belts up, showing that mutual respect, which they should, and they both deserve to do that. It was a great way. I mean, it vindicated everything that we said about that arrangement, that no one was going to bury Thunder Rosa, and Thunder Rosa would not allow that to happen in the first place. So,
let's see here. Front Row says, Thunder said on our show that women from all over the world were reaching out to work with Mission Pro. Great way to introduce new talents and promotions to the viewers. That's one of my favorite things about Mission Pro right now, is because I admittedly am lax on my knowledge of female wrestlers. And I don't mean any disrespect by that. I still feel like there are a lot of wrestlers, like indie wrestlers, that are men that get a higher profile somehow right now. I still just feel like that's the way the world works right this second. But I feel like things are getting better for everybody. And Thunder Rosa is a fine example of that, because I knew exactly who Thunder Rosa was before I ever saw her on NWA television, because that's somebody who nailed it down. She and Brian, I'll give Brian some props here. But whatever happened there, they nailed it down. Like, I wanted to see Thunder Rosa in the NWA, and when she showed up there, I was super stoked about it. But what she could bring to the table through Mission Pro Wrestling, what they can help with is exactly that, like raising the profile of these women athletes that are out there that are trying to make their name in professional wrestling. If they follow that rhythm, that outline of what Thunder Rosa did, then it's going to be nothing for as many female independent wrestlers to start showing up on the scene as anybody. Like, their profile is going to be immediately raised. I want Mission Pro to be huge, because they deserve it. First of all, it's still the best show I saw last month, probably. And it's just, anyway, I've said enough.
No, it's the best show top to bottom I've seen in months. Maybe. Well, I mean, since the last episode of Power, Super Power. I mean, as far as me being invested and enjoying the show and enjoying the wrestling, and it being just well put together and well thought out for wrestling fans like us who enjoy good wrestling. And so I again, I can't wait till November 6th. We'll call it Will's birthday bash / Mission Pro Wrestling party that we'll be having. So that'll be fun. But yeah, I mean, you highlighted Brian's comment. I was going to mention that, keep following Mission Pro and you'll end up being an expert on women's wrestling. No doubt, man. I mean, after that first show, I really did realize that this is shining a much needed spotlight on women's wrestling, independent and beyond, of all this talent. And to your point, Gary, it is true. I mean, you do see a lot of male competitors getting spotlighted a lot more in terms of indie talent and things like that. And so it's really, really good and refreshing to see that happening for the women through Mission Pro Wrestling.
I feel like I don't know how you do it any better than what they did it. Like, I literally watched that show, and I mean, I know it sounds like we're just like constantly blowing smoke up their ass here, but I'm serious that I watched that Mission Pro show and I enjoyed every single match, and I loved the way it was all presented. I loved everything about that show. And at the end, I knew who each woman was, and I wanted to see them all again. And that's a testament to what they were able to put together. And that's a testament as much to Rosa as it is to Robin Reed, who I'm a big fan of, and we've had her on the show, and it's a testament, and it's a testament to those women's talents that they all had their part to play, and they know who they are. They know to quote The Rock, they know their role. They know what they're doing out there, and that's good stuff, man. There's plenty of personality, and it's more and more every time I think about it. It's just that back to that same thing we talk about a lot, just that there's no lack of talent. It doesn't worry me when somebody moves on to a different company or whatever from the NWA or wherever. You're like, there's so much wrestling talent out there, women and men. Like there's plenty, and a lot of people. And yeah, Brian Rosa pointing this out too. I want to mention is commentary team also knowing the women, that was valuable too, and just like throw it in there, giving you some insight on those people. That's something worth it. And yeah, Holiday and Brittany. Was it Brittany Nicole? Did I say that right?
Mhm.
I think I did. Yeah, man, it was great. It was definitely good stuff. So anyway.
That's like how, no one ever says, hey, what do you think about the men's division in AEW? What do you think about the men's division in WWE? They're always talking about, what do you think about the women's division? Like it's a separate thing, and it shouldn't be. And that's what I like about Mission Pro. Like this should be a haven for women to come to. It's not a women's division. It is just pro wrestling that happens to be the best women talent, female talent in the world. And we can get behind all the debates about how good the division is. It's not a division. It's just wrestling. And I love it, man. I'm with you. And then I just got sidetracked because on my Instagram, the Cinema Shock picture of Knight Rider just came up. I'm like, what is this?
You can do another podcast called Cinema Shock. And Knight Rider is directed by George Romero, who did the Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, all of that stuff. But Knight Rider is a movie I had never seen before this one. And if you listen to that episode, I freaking loved it. I loved Knight Rider. It's good. It's not a horror movie at all. It's just it's hard to explain it. This is not the show for it. So there's a whole episode about it. That's at Cinema Shock Net. You gotta check that out. Anyway, Joe's wife now likes Rob's beard trimmed.
Cool, man. Either way. I like it. We can go either way, man. Here's what happened. It was not meant to be the short, but evidently a 3 on a Manscaped is not the same as a 3 guard on everything else.
Dude, you did not put that Manscaped on your face. Don't even try to convince us otherwise.
And now I'm getting like pink eye. So.
Well, you don't go butthole to face. That is the trick. Like, you don't do that. Aldous has defended the NWA World's title at my local promotion, All Star Wrestling. That's awesome, James Lawrence. James Lawrence also just recently went to a show. He was telling us in the chat, if you guys were in there talking about, he did the drive-in thing. I know they've done that at Texas. I saw like Promise Braxton and Alex Grassi and stuff doing that. Sorry, my wife's going to bed and telling me what I'm not allowed to do. So it's like,
is she watching?
I've been doing this thing where I do like some meal prep before I go to bed, and so like I'll finish these Sunday nights, and then I'll go downstairs and start cooking. And she is sick of my shit. she's texting me like, "Do not be cooking tonight."
Gary gets on these little things for a minute, man. He'll get on these little kicks for a couple of weeks, like stoicism or something like that, and then it'll fall off.
I've still been on that stoicism.
I've seen you. You need to keep that junk out of the memes, bro. I'll be reading these memes, cracking up, and then you'll put something serious in there. I'm like, dude, it's like Jervis, Gentleman Jervis. There's a place for Gentleman Jervis, but it's not in the memes, bro. Separate your stoicism. Put that on Cinema Schlong or something.
That's how it gets you, though. That's how it makes you pay attention to the message. You know what I'm saying?
You put on full pages of books. You can't do that. That's plagiarism, man. You can't just put a whole page of text on there.
I can see it. I wrote it. I posted the page from the book.
Man, that's intellectual property, man.
Rob.
Wrong.
Listen to Rob out here giving me SEO tips.
No one's reading that. No one's reading all that bullshit, man.
Have y'all ever? Do y'all partner? Does the Nation show fight about what each other puts on their personal Instagram page?
Yes, I know them dudes too. Yes.
Have you guys watched the ROH stuff, the Pure tournament? Any of that yet?
I have not, and I want to. I saw this comment from Darren, and it reminded me. God, there's just been so much going on, man. I mean, and with Primetime Live and just the NWA stuff that's been going on, and actually having NWA content and stuff to watch, it's been on my list to catch up on some of these other promotions. And that was one of them. So, yeah, I want to check it out. Maybe we check it out and talk about it next week or something like that. But
We talked about
here.
your tournament at one point on the show, didn't we, about the rules?
Yeah, we went over the rules and
we
just
talked
kinda
about it,
set
but apparently it's going now. And according to Darren here, it's been really good. So we should check it out and cover it on the show here.
I trust that they're doing something good. I have not followed Ring of Honor as seriously as I did a few months ago, like pre-March, but they're gonna treat that responsibly. They're gonna do a good job on it.
It's tough, man. There's just like so much to keep up with. That's the problem. And so like it's been the stuff we talk about, and then honestly, like when I have a spare second, like yesterday morning I had a little time, so I threw on AEW because I had not seen Dynamite yet. And so I watched it. But Joe, we're talking about the Instagram page. Front row says no, we're a cohesive unit. I'm like, oh.
All right. Shots fired, man.
They're a sponsor of Mission Pro.
Yeah, I said that when I announced, like, I think at the very beginning of the show. If you paid attention to the shit we talk about, then you would know that.
You're proving front row right here. We are not a cohesive unit.
Yeah, no, I said right up top, we wanted to talk about Mission Pro because the Nation Show was in the chat, front row, and we were all sponsors of Mission Pro Wrestling.
I'm just reminding them, man. I think I think Ryan Romero, isn't he a sponsor too? Like an individual sponsor?
He could be. That could be. Watch the product, Stinson.
I don't watch this bullcrap, man. I've never seen an episode.
It's like asking me to watch Piper's Notes. I'm just kidding. I don't mean that.
Wow.
I don't mean that. It hit me after I said it that's actually more towards Piper, and I don't mean that. I like Piper. I like Piper.
You got to separate Rob and Piper. Piper is a gem. She is a shining beacon of light on this channel. But
she's all right.
You can tell Rob. You can tell Rob whatever you want, though.
She's okay, I guess.
I was going to say. I mean, the problem I have with Piper's Note is that Rob is there.
He's a little micromanagey, a little too micromanagey for my taste. But you guys don't understand that because you don't see the outtakes all the times. He like hits her on the wrist with a ruler and it's like, no, don't you ask that.
We're working on season 2 right now. We're in production right now, hoping to bring that out in December. Got a great first episode with Tim Storm. I'm looking forward to it. But one of the things that I'm really trying to get Piper to do, Piper's problem, it's not a problem. She's just, she's 10 years old. She gets on here and she's been inundated with wrestling her whole life. So she would, like, for example, we had Nikita Koloff on here. She had her questions down. We always do like a pre-show meeting and we get them down. And she locked up, man. She's like starstruck. She's like, I really don't want Piper's. I really would like to just be Piper. I don't even want to be on there, but she won't do it by herself. But she's getting better. I mean, if you saw her episode with Amanda Palmer, man, I mean, she owned it. She was fantastic. And she's getting more confident. She's involved herself in like dance, and she's taking voice lessons, and she's going to karaoke nights, and she's trying to put herself more out there, and we're trying to encourage that. So, but this second season of Piper's Nuts, I think it's going to, it's going to be awesome. We're excited. Going to get Lindsay Snow on there. I'm hoping to get the Queen of the House of Rose on there, and a bunch of others, and it's just going to be a great season. Like to do some repeats, maybe get Thunder Rosa back on there, or get Brian Rosa. I want to do something about Godzilla with him. We've been talking about that for a while, but she's getting better and she's getting more assertive, and I'm very proud of her.
Not us, Will.
Apparently,
Must be.
yeah. So, the cream of the crop, apparently, just not me.
We're the failures from the episode.
Listen, I've been booked and rebooked so many times. They put me on the back burner, and they're like, we'll get to you.
He's big timing you now.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Dang, bro. You're right, man. You're booked.
How are those boiled peanuts treating you, man? You are
He's getting them
down on those things.
Bro, I would have Piper come in here and dump my cup out like 3 times since the show started. These are delicious.
Joe says, in my opinion, we're about to start a new fam, the Mission Pro fam. We're following and sub to all the other sponsors. If they want to help women's wrestling, we're all for it. Yeah, that's kind of how we felt. I mean, I think Joe and I actually had a conversation about this, but as far as sponsorship, I'm all for anybody that wants to support them should support them. Like, we want them to become huge. So, yeah, absolutely. Everybody talking about Godzilla now. Can't do an episode about Godzilla without including Lindsay Snow. Is she into Godzilla? I know she's a kaiju after all. Yeah, 100%. James Lawrence has vast Godzilla knowledge. I have James, if you haven't gotten it already, too, and he hooked me up with something on Facebook the other day with some cool Godzilla stuff. But Brian Solomon, who wrote Pro Wrestling FAQ, also wrote Godzilla FAQ.
Let me step aside real quick. It's right here.
Just cut him off while he's going.
Godzilla.
I thought I had it. Oh, you got it too. Look at that. Yeah. See? All right, I was going to show it off there.
I mean, this is if you've got Pro Wrestling FAQ you've got the National Wrestling Alliance book that's amazing. It's a fantastic book, but it's like graduate level stuff. It's not an easy read. You're going to have to take notes and all this. Pro Wrestling FAQ is much more reader friendly. It's filled with graphics, organizers, and illustrations. And Godzilla FAQ is developed along those same lines. And it's a very colorful book. Let me see if you can, lots of charts, lots of images. Just a very fun read, and it takes you through the history of Godzilla lore and cinema and literature. It's a fantastic book, and Brian Solomon tells us that this book actually outsells Pro Wrestling FAQ by far. This is his best-selling book. It's it's on Amazon. It's not. I think I paid $19 for this or something. Very good book. I encourage you to get it. And Brian Rosa is a diehard Godzilla fan. And so we have been wanting to do an interview with Brian Rosa just on Godzilla and all that. So there you go.
On my Letterbox, which is like a social media where you put movie reviews and that sort of thing, I was trying to keep a list. I was trying to rank the Godzilla films for a while there, but to Rob's point, I guess I got out of it and I stopped. I was going to rewatch every single Godzilla movie. There are a ton of Godzilla movies. So I was trying to get through them, but whatever. What do you want to talk about, chat room? Now's the time. You got it. You guys to tell us.
We're in the club.
I see Roscoe talking about the only Godzilla is Jack Stade.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about Brian Solomon. He's got a book coming out real soon on the Sheik, the original Sheik, which is going to be fantastic. And the Sheik was one of the greatest heels of all time. I mean, he was one of the most storied names. What's up, Hammerstone?
I was about to say, we could talk about that, or we could talk about
what, Gary? Go ahead and say it.
We could talk about Alexander Hammerstone.
Alexander Hamilton, Hammerstone. His name is Alexander Hammerstone.
Gosh, where do we start? Alexander Hammerstone, better known by his ring names, Alex Rhodey. Is that his real name? Look at that. Better known by his ring names, Alexander Hammerstone, or simply Hammerstone. I love that. He's from Phoenix. What do you guys want to know? He's a former AWF state champion, AWF tag team champion 2 times. He won the Good as Gold Rumble, FSW heavyweight champion 2-time, FSW Nevada state championship 1-time, FSW tag team champion 1-time, Lions Pride Sports 360 championship, MLW national openweight champion. He's the current national openweight champion, mind you. He won the National Openweight Championship tournament. This was all in 2019. PPW Tag Team Champion. 3PW Tag Team Champion. PCW Ultra Heavyweight Champion. Ranked number 98 of the top 500 singles wrestlers in the PWI 500 this year. Number 98. It's on his way up.
Hold on, let me verify that.
He's a West Coast Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. He won a tournament to get that. He's a legacy. He won the. Yeah.
You said number 98?
Number 98.
Let's see what his biography says on here. You know who? There it is. Alexander Hammerstone. His
That's
name
right.
is Alexander Hammerstone. He is 6'3" tall.
Well, Wikipedia says 6'4".
220 pounds if you use the Imperial system. He is seemingly invincible as MLW National Openweight Champion with successful defenses against Savio Vega, Davey Boy Smith Jr., and Aerostar. Member of the Dynasty, defeated Mil Muertes for the PCW Ultra title in January. Competed in Pro Wrestling Noah's N1 victory tourney last year. That's his write-up.
Oh, that is good stuff. He just fought like Noah's heavyweight champion, Pro Wrestling Noah's heavyweight champion. Let's see here. Let's see. Let me see if I can share something on my screen real quick for you guys to watch. He's 6 foot something worth of kick ass is what this guy is. So let's see if this lets me. Hold on. I'll share my screen. Share. Look at this. All right. Now you get a little peek behind the scenes. Can you see that, Will?
Nope.
You don't see anything? Oh, wait. I have to turn it on. There it is.
There you go.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's highlight it.
Whoa.
What's happening?
What the hell?
Oh, watch this. Can you see this?
Oh, yeah.
There's our boy. Boom!
Jesus.
He just killed that dude.
God.
Boom! Boom!
God, we just witnessed the murder.
Boom! Boom!
Dog.
And he's
Guys,
doing
they're
push-ups.
and flipping off the crowd. Oh, that's the man. That's the man. Right here.
Okay.
Alexander Hammerstone.
There's a million things haven't done, but just you wait. Just you wait.
Man.
Over here, can you get a man breaking someone in half and then backdropping them, and then a song from the Hamilton soundtrack?
Hammerstone the musical. Hammerstone the musical.
Yep, there you go. Oh man, I meant to mention this. Brandon, good job. If AK and Lindsay Snow ended up matched together at Bloodsport, who wins? They did end up turning this into a tournament. There is a 4-woman tournament, and it's like Allison Kay and Lindsay Snow on opposite ends of this tournament. So they could end up in the finals of this tournament against each other. And oh man, if that happens, that's quality stuff.
It's quality. It is.
Who you got? Who you got, Rob?
Man, Allison Kay is a former world's champion. She might be the once and future world's champion, but I think there is a star on the rise in the horizon, and that is the star of Lindsay Snow. And I think Lindsay Snow has got a very bright future indeed, and I got her winning that whole thing. I said it on Twitter. I put it out there on Twitter today. Ain't no secret. The American Kaiju wins.
All right.
Okay.
I'm torn. I'm not going to go full on AK, but I would lean that direction probably a little bit. But you make a lot of great cases, and I mean, Lindsay Snow makes a great case for herself in what I've seen of her. So it's not just you. I mean, I would just love to see the match. Hope we get to see it. I hope the tournament ends up that way, and that's what we get to see. Because man, either way, that's going to be a great match.
You see that as the finals match right there?
I think
I would hope. I hope so. Yeah, I'm hoping.
The possibility of that makes you want to watch that pay-per-view even more.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see happen.
There she is. Right there. That's her right there.
Yes, it is. Front Row's become a fan of Chris Dickinson. If he was signed to the NWA today, how would you use him? Will, what would you do with Chris Dickinson, the dirty daddy, the filthy father?
I'd have him go after Trevor Murdoch.
Ooh, that's a good one. Rob.
I like that. I hadn't thought of that. I actually like that, Will.
Oh, you actually like something I say? Thanks.
I actually like that. Nah, man, that's absolutely. I mean, if he's not gonna, you can't just come out there and huff and puff and just wake up one day and decide you're a bad guy and that makes you a title contender. You got to work your way up. What better way to start than win either with the TV title that Zicky Dice holds or with the national championship?
Yeah, I would just see it being a lot more of a compelling story if him and Trevor Murdoch. I mean, Trevor's over as obviously a babyface and had a great moment just now. And if Chris Dickinson came in and tried to spoil the party for him, I think that would make a pretty compelling story.
That would be a good story. I can also see the Zicky Dice thing. It'd be interesting to see which one he would want to go for first. The Zicky Dice idea is cool too because I could see him having a problem with the outlandish one, given the personality differences.
He'll go in with the whole gentleman Jervis thing, like, what kind of bull crap is this? You're disrespecting my profession, this and that, and and a pink, you turn the belt pink, come on, dude, that kind of thing, and
yeah, that could be interesting. Or we could just listen to Woodland Goblin.
That'd be good too, man. That'd be good too.
Yeah,
I think anything that Tom Latimer is involved in automatically seems very serious. So, Chris Dickinson strikes me as a very serious guy. Tom Latimer obviously is the big man. Him and Jack Stane are the big dudes in the NWA. I mean, Nick Aldis is big, but when we think of like Tom Latimer, we think of him as being the big muscle guy.
There's a different level to like the ferocity behind Tom Latimer wrestling.
He's meaner, man. Nick Aldis is more diplomatic and statesmanlike. Tom Latimer's just mean. I mean, what do you expect from a Scot?
Stop.
I joke.
Well, not to be Rob, I know where you stand on this, and I'm with you, but not to be the babyface heel police, but would that be a Tom Latimer face turn for him to come out? Because, I mean, I could see it, and I think it'd be a cool surprise. I mean, let's say even on Primetime Live, Dickinson's out there spitting off at the mouth, and then here comes Tom Latimer. We hadn't seen him, heard from him, and he basically just comes in and tells him to shut his mouth, or he's going to shut it for him. That type of.
I just think he's all business, and sometimes that comes across as something guys don't like, especially when it involves Tim Storm, and sometimes it comes across as something that people do like. And it's like Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa has not been definitively defined as a heel or a babyface. I mean, she was with Melina and Marty Bell and all that. And I guess if you want to argue conventional, categories, Allison Kay was the babyface, even though she's not a traditional babyface. We don't believe in heels and faces, man. They're just going out there, and all of them are trying to leverage for ground and status. And, I mean, what is Zicky Dice? Is he a heel or a face? I don't know. He's beloved. He's funny. He's sometimes really lovable. Sometimes he's a dick, and I don't know what he is, but it's just Chris Dickinson too. I mean, it's like Chris Dickinson, like I think Gary made this point last week. Yeah, Chris Dickinson's out there, arguing and saying all this stuff, but when he goes in the ring, it's not like he's cheating. He's going in there and he's wrestling. He's wrestling for like legitimate, what we all talk about, prize fight wrestling. I'm tired of these gimmicks and this and that. This gentleman Jervis guy who, I have a special place in my heart for gentlemen burgers now.
See that?
and
Did you
I
see that
like
quick?
but I'm just quoting. I'm not saying I'm quoting Dickinson here. You guys saw it, but he went in the ring and he didn't do anything like illegal. He went in there and he had a legitimate match, which is what they do in UWN and NWA stuff. So heels and faces, I think, aren't a factor because it's prize fighting.
So
it's like
I'll say this. I'll say this, and this is not trying to stir the pot or start an argument. I agree with you, but I don't think that the heel babyface dynamic doesn't exist, because I would say Chris Dickinson is a heel because while he didn't do anything illegal, he's acting in a way that's very kind of despicable. Does that make sense? Like his demeanor. And so to me, as a wrestling fan, I would view that as a heel tendency, because I wouldn't see somebody that, you would call a traditional babyface doing something despicable, like attacking someone before the bell or attacking them after the bell or outside, in backstage or something like that. Those are heelish tactics. So yeah, I get what you're saying. There's not traditional, when we say, well, actually, I would argue that is more traditional heel. What we think of as a heel nowadays, because we've been tainted by the WWE, is cheating to win. And that's not traditional heel. Traditional heel is actually what we're talking about here, which is just selfish gain, selfish motivation. They don't do anything illegal, but what they do is just distasteful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that's what heel and face traditionally mean, though. I think that heel and face traditionally means what gets over. And it's like Dusty Rhodes or let's say Tim Storm using a low blow on Nick Aldis. That's a heelish move, I guess. It's breaking the rules, but he's a babyface, man. He's over with the fans, and Nick wasn't at that moment. It's like, if we're going to use those terms, and it's whatever. I mean, I think the Attitude Era, if you want to say anything about it, they turned that whole argument on its head because, and even before that, even before the Attitude Era, you look at the Road Warriors. Animal just passed away, a few weeks ago. They were putting Dusty Rhodes' eye out with a spike and getting cheered doing it. They were over with the fans, so you can't really say maybe they tried to be heel, maybe they tried to make Sting a heel and turn him into an NWO member, and it didn't take with the fans. But heel and face is whatever the fans decide. Cheating is indifferent. Everybody cheats.
I get that. And I mean, honestly, if you're a good heel and you're doing it right, you kind of will get cheered because it's such a good thing. Does that make sense? Like,
no, I hear you.
I think again, where our minds are a little bit tainted by these heels that get cheap heat and that do underhanded stuff all the time, and they never have a clean finish to a match because they cheat every time, or they, stuff like that. When in reality, you're right. I mean, the crowd determines that, but it is a strategic and planned thing. You know what I mean? Who's going to be?
A lot of times it is. Will, you're right.
And I'll say it too. No, you're right. And I know what you're about to say, because my next point was that there are people that transcend that. I mean, I would say Ric Flair transcended that to an extent, and there will be people that will say hardcore Ric Flair was heel. And I get why you would say that, but I think he falls into the category that you're talking about, even with a Nick Aldis and a Thunder Rosa. There's a transcending that whole label when it comes to you reach a certain status, and you can kind of honestly do whatever you want because everybody's going to come after that title. So you're going to fight people that you might traditionally classify as a heel, and you're going to fight people that you might traditionally classify as a babyface because you've reached that level where you've transcended that. And I think that's what, and we had this whole conversation about Mike Bennett and, is he a heel or babyface? Well, like, it doesn't matter. Like, once you reach that level, it doesn't matter. It's just two prize fighters that want the same title, and it doesn't matter if they're the exact same person or not. The storyline is compelling. I'm talking about the right lead up to that, and maybe some of the mid to lower card stuff. I think that heel babyface dynamic is needed to really set up the story that is being told. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like with gimmick man. No, absolutely. I think we're agreeing too. I think we're getting hung up on some semantics because one, we got to define what we mean by heel and face. I mean, by all intents and purposes, Stone Cold Steve Austin was meant to be a bad guy. And
Yeah.
no one would say he's a heel, but he acted very heelishly for all of his career. The Road Warriors acted very heelish their whole career. We have to define what we mean. I guess it's like gimmick matches. Here's the analogy. I don't like gimmick matches when the title's involved. If the title's not involved and it moves stories along, that's fine. Have a dog collar match. Have a the only kind of gimmick match I want to see in a title match is a cage or best 2 out of 3 falls. That's it. I don't want to see fatal 4-way, triple threat, ladders, none of that. But that's not to say there's not a place for that to settle grudges and all that. But I guess going back to like when we're in prize fighting, the heel and face thing is really a matter of reference, because you look at in MMA or in prize fighting outside of wrestling, like boxing, Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. Who's the heel or face there? You know what I mean? People will say, well, there's not really bad guys or good guys. Oh, yes, there are. There are good guys and bad guys. If you really think the whole Irish thing is obnoxious, then you really don't like Conor McGregor and he's a heel. If you're rooting for the American team, then Mayweather is the face. But if you don't like the bombast and the arrogance, then Mayweather's the heel. And McGregor is the fighting man's champion. He's the baby face. It just depends on perspective. And I think that's what we're at. And if that's the conundrum you're in, that's a really good thing. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, man. They're always going to be baby faces to me. I don't care if you're a New England Patriots fan, you cheated, man. Inflategate, you were a heel. But you can't tell that to Patriots fans. They're going to stand by that to the end and say, whatever, man. It's just heels and faces aren't a big deal. It's over talked about. Do they exist? Yes. Number 1, Paul Jones and his army, they were definitely heels. Them going after Jimmy Valiant and all that stuff with Shaska Watley and the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez and all that stuff, that was a definite, clear-cut baby face versus heel thing. Aaron Stevens was definitely a heel, no doubt. But generally speaking, for the things that are really important, like when the world titles are on the line, it shouldn't really matter. Heels and faces shouldn't be a factor. That becomes a matter of personal preference or what the fans appreciate.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think my thing is, and James Lawrence made a good point in here in the chat somewhere. A heel is someone who draws heat. So, I mean, if you want to boil it down to the fundamental level, I mean, that is what it is. And so you look at right. An action like Chris Dickinson attacking someone before the match. I believe in my heart that was intended to draw heat. And that would be a heelish thing, because that doesn't appeal to a sensible person. You don't just go attack somebody for no reason because you're mad at someone else. Like, that's not something that you do. But the thing is that it's almost like as humanity we've evolved. Whoa, we got Inception again. It's almost like as humanity we've evolved, and like it's God. He's just going to show us clips of Hammerstone all night. That's fine.
No, you're right. You're right, Will.
We weren't having an intelligent conversation. It's fine.
Hills are people who draw heat. That's exactly what I was saying. And he
But my point is that it seems like that was easier to do in the 80s and even the 90s, like you said, up until the Attitude Era, up until Stone Cold Steve Austin, because it's almost like as a society we started cheering for the bad guy in a way. And so now those lines are blurred, and it's really harder to define a heel and a babyface. We've even made that argument sitting here talking about Chris Dickinson, the conversation we're having right now, saying like, hey, some of the stuff he's saying we kind of agree with, Yeah. And so, I mean, it's hard to see him as like somebody that we would hate or that we would despise. We're kind of like, oh yeah, I get that. So the lines get blurred. But I think when it comes to storytelling and booking, I think there usually is a clear babyface and heel in mind until, like you said, you get to that point where it is a prize fight and it's just two guys who want a title. And I think it depends on the storyline. It depends on the feud you're talking about.
I think there's a place for. Well, I was just going to say that I think there's a place for heels and faces still. I'm with Will, I think, on that part of it. I think you're both, agreeing on a lot, it sounds like. But it just, I mean, when you talk about like even strictly business, like listen, Nick Aldis will straight up tell you the reason they targeted Tim Storm was because he thought, I'm just a man out here, like there's no side I'm taking. And he's like, you got guys coming up here who are faces, like all these guys are kind of faces. So like, what's the best way for me to be a heel? I'm going to attack the biggest baby face there is. Like it's Tim Storm. He was doing it to make a heel statement. There was no other reason Nick Aldis should have attacked Tim Storm. He was doing it because he wanted to be a dick. Like that's why they did it.
Well, but at the same time, and I know it sounds like I'm flipping.
Man. He wasn't trying to be a dick. He was trying to assert his position as the top draw in the NWA.
Tim Storm had already lost a match and had no more opportunity to have a title shot. He posed no threat to Nick Aldis.
His mouth, bruh. He had Nick Aldis' name in his mouth. And that's exactly what Nick Aldis came out and said. Don't talk about me disrespectfully. You know? And that's what that was, man. But here we go. That's the point, man. Like, if we're going to have this debate, everybody's going to have this debate. Heel and baby. All I'm saying, there's definitely room in the world for heels and faces in every performance sport. There is. I'm just saying the NWA is not fixated, and I can't hear a word you're saying because you're on mute, fool.
Oh, sorry. What I was going to say is what I will agree with is that the best heels or the best villains in general in anything, in movies to wrestling, whatever, they believe in what they're doing. And they have a reason to believe in what they're doing. So I will agree there. Like I think that there's something to that it, you know, but I also agree that sometimes it's cool to have a heel that, well, this sounds counterproductive, but a heel that's not cool, like a heel that's actually just trying to be an ass. Like I think the trouble is nowadays, like even somebody like MJF still has fans. MJF's just trying to be an asshole. And
my problem with it is that when you're trying to do that just to be an ass, then and I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I mean, I agree with you guys. We're saying the same thing. Wrestling has always had heels and faces. They've always had characters that are bad guys, no doubt. I'm not ignorant of that. But if we're really interested in making this legitimate and believable, there comes a point where what you do is not believable. Like MJF, the extent to which he takes his heelishness is like it's an act. It's obviously you're such a bad guy. I don't believe it. I can't believe that you would really flip off a 4-year-old kid.
I knew that was coming.
It's going to come, and I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you. Let me go to an autograph signing and him flip off and freaking kayfabe is about to be broke because I may get my ass whooped, but somebody's getting an ass whooping. It might be him. It might be probably going to be me. But it's going to happen because you don't flip off a kid, dude. That's not believable. Athletes don't do that. And you know, I don't care who says, Dave Marquez, whatever they said about it's all, but no, it's not. That's not believable. People just don't do that. It's like Will always said.
Although he did flip the one switch that made you despise him, like made him the ultimate heel.
That's the ultimate wrestling is not is for kids.
So MJF did his job well, is what you're saying.
If he's trying to be a heel, yeah, man, he made me hate him, and I like it. I really like it.
This is my favorite discussion that we have constantly. It's a great discussion. Wrestling, professional wrestling is such a beautiful thing, and if you don't like hearing 3 grown men argue about stuff like this, then you're on the wrong podcast. But we have a good time with it.
Yeah, I love these discussions. I love these debates. Dead Kobe, you kept asking the question. I think Scooby. Oh, go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
I will say MJF is really freaking entertaining, man. He is really entertaining. That Joker is funny.
I think he is, and it's funny to me sometimes with that. I mean, on one hand, I get what you're saying. On the other, I'm like, man, he really did the thing that got Rob even fired up. So I'm like, kind of worked.
Man. We're in the Gatlinburg. No, this is how this. I don't mean for it to, man. I'm an educator. I love children. I think they should be protected. We went to Dick's Last Resort. I know the gimmick there. I know what they do. I know they are there to like trash talk you. Well, man, they started trash talking my kids, bro. I flipped out. I got kicked out of Dick's, dude, in Gatlinburg. Because it was going down. I was like, hell no. I was like, no, let's do this. You know, I was like, yeah, that's hey, man. You shouldn't mess with kids.
No more dicks for Rob.
No,
Nope.
I'm banned in Gatlinburg, at least.
Rob could not handle the dicks. We have learned that today. But
I don't like that anymore, bro. When I was younger, in my younger days, I could handle them dicks. But now.
Anyway, Jacob,
Restaurant.
yeah, I know that's what we're talking about, the restaurant. You asked about UWN. They don't have like an official. Nobody seems to have a damned official like match list. But I will tell you this: based on Twitter, you can count on Dirty Dickinson. Or I'm sorry, the Dirty Daddy Chris Dickinson taking on Max Caster. That is going to happen this week on Tuesday night. You're also going to see. What was the other match I saw? I saw Lacey Ryan versus Vipress. That is happening. She's Future Stars of Wrestling Women's Championship on the line against Vipress. That match is happening. You're also going to see Brian Idol is making his UWN debut, taking on Levi Shapiro. And, of course, Zicky Dice, the TV champion, the NWA TV champion, is having a team up with a mystery partner, and he's taking on the Pope and Watts. All of that stuff.
Zicky Dyson question mark versus Watson Pope.
That's what Rob said. Some of us are saying Enzo. So you don't know. You got to tune in Tuesday if you want to do it. If you haven't done it, hopefully you've already just bought your package deal and you've got episode 4 in the bag and you're just watching it anyway. But if you haven't, $7.99 on Fight TV. You can watch this thing, and we'll find out together on Tuesday night. And, of course, we'll be here right after that to hang out with you and talk about it. Everything that happens on Tuesday night, we're here live on YouTube. Same NWA time, same NWA channel. That work? Yeah. All right.
That's nice, bro.
Will's not feeling it, but whatever. Anyway, some of us got to go to bed, so we're going to have to call it a night. It's been fun hanging out with you guys. Thank you for everybody who stuck around with us and just chatted in the after show. This has been great, just watching Rob just stuff his face full of peanuts.
God, I know. I feel like I can't focus.
I just like look up every time I look up at him. He's just like his cheeks are just like chipmunks. Like, oh man!
I don't think you're supposed to eat them that quickly and in that volume. I don't. I just feel like you're. I know you have a weird sleep schedule, but you're definitely not going to sleep anytime soon.
Anyway, if you want to see.
Something's hurting, man. I got to go dookie in a second.
Come back on Tuesday night. We'll talk about UWN Primetime Live. The results of that, we'll run it down and even take a few minutes and hear your thoughts in the chat. We'll also see Rob get down on some more penis, and then we'll
What was that? Come again?
All right. That's it for this week. Until next time, enjoy your gravy cake.